It is Tuesday. It's Tuesday. We're that much closer to Friday. Thank you for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right in front of me is talented producer James Warrington.
There's a talented producer in front of you?
There
Where?
is. It's right here in front of me. You see him. James. How are you doing today, James?
I'm staying cool, Nick. That's the name of the game, man.
James looked up at me because I paused for a second because I almost said today is Monday. I didn't know if you caught that.
I was off yesterday, so today feels like Monday to me.
Look, it feels like Monday again, but it's Tuesday. We're that much closer to Friday. Thank you guys again for joining us here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. We have a lot going on today. I'm looking at the live monitors, a lot of live content. We have reporters in the field. We'll get updates on their stories coming up in just a bit. We're also going to take a look at your forecast because, man, it is hot. Have you been outside yet, like this afternoon?
By outside, do you mean that sauna place?
Yes.
Yeah, I have been there.
I walked from my car to the building, and it was a struggle. And I'm like, man, why am I breathing so heavy? It's like the air was just, it was air you can wear.
That is the area you can wear.
Am I saying that right? I'm trying to take all of Brad's terms and use them for myself. Selfishly. But
You're an expert now because you have the
I have Nick's Icks, Nick's Picks. Today is another ick. We are weather alert today. It's not just, it's just, ugh. That's how you feel outside. I'm like, man, it's one of those uncomfortable days. So that's why you got to make sure that you are staying hydrated, that you're wearing the sunscreen, and that you are being safe. So, yeah. But we have meteorologist Becca Bursall here in studio. Becca, thank you for your time. Thank you for coming in. Let me punch you up. Here she is.
Good to be here. Sorry about a little late.
Blame it on the heat.
Blame it on the heat. Yes.
Becca, that wasn't late. That was choreographed banter. That was
Fashionably
the plan.
late.
I just had to get my rant off for a second.
Yeah.
You know.
There was one graphic that I had to throw in here, and it was our first named tropical storm of the season. And my graphics would load for me, but I have it in there now.
Okay. So, she has it in.
I
okay.
have it in there. Thank you guys. It was important to have it in there. Yeah. But of course, the big story for us is the heat. We have active heat advisories across the entire Charlotte metro area. And this goes from noon today through about 8 o'clock on Wednesday evening. You'll notice the mountain's not encompassed in this, but this is everywhere widespread for heat index values of 105 or greater. And further off into the east, that's where we have extreme heat warnings. This is over towards Raleigh, Greensboro, where the heat index is expected to be 110 or greater. And today will likely be the hottest day out of the week ahead, so definitely an ick for Nick's Picks. Outside right now, it's 95 in Charlotte, and it is only 12:33. It's 94 Monroe, also 95 towards Sherrod, portions of Lancaster, even 83 currently out the door over in Boone. But factoring in the heat index, this is really what we've been talking about all week long. It feels like the triple digits widespread, feeling like 106 in Albemarle, 101 in Statesville, 103 in Charlotte, 104 in Lincoln, and up to 105 over in Morganton. And again, it's only lunchtime. Highs today are well on their way to break into the triple digits across the Charlotte metro area, something that we have not done and not hit since last July. Of course, we're continuing our heat streak where we've had consecutive high temperatures, 90 degrees or above. We're now up to 5 days, of course, today, easily adding number 6 to that, with hourly heat index expected to be around that triple digit mark, basically from now all the way through about 6-7 o'clock. Now, the heat index will stay very, very toasty in that dangerous level into tomorrow and into Thursday as well, before starting to back down just a little bit towards the upper 90s towards the end of the work week and also in the weekend. Want to get to this update. Tropical storm Andrea has just formed per the 11 a.m. advisory by the National Hurricane Center. This is well east of Bermuda, and it's basically a disorganized system of showers and thunderstorms. We'll continue to push up to the northeast, so will not be a threat to land, but we're just getting started with hurricane season. It's been a slow start, so this is our first named storm. Here at home, we've got a double threat in the forecast for Wednesday. For tomorrow, what you can expect is heat index values to be once again close to a 105, but also the potential of strong to severe storms as well, which is why it's a double threat. You can see all of us pretty much encompassed under a medium threat. This is mainly going to be for a few thunderstorms that could potentially have some damaging wind gusts or the potential of small-sized hail. So let's time this out for you as we head into today. Stray shower possible, but most locations will stay dry during the daytime hours. But here comes the rain by the time we get into Thursday. Well, this is Wednesday. Wednesday afternoon, it really starts to pop off, especially from about noon all the way through 6, 7 o'clock. After 7 o'clock, once we lose a little bit of that daytime heating, rain chances will start to fizzle out, and a few isolated thunderstorms will also be possible for Thursday as well. No severe weather threat as of now. But especially Wednesday, it's going to be just a little bit more widespread across the area. High temperatures will back off towards the end of the work week, highs in the lower 90s, but with that extra humidity, it's still going to be feeling like the upper 90s. So heat safety this week, too much time outside, heat stroke is possible, wear light colored clothing, and of course stay hydrated, lots of SPF, and drink plenty of water. Random weather stat, something that we included yesterday, the percent of summers that we have hit 100 degrees plus is 31%, and 45 Charlotte summers have hit 100 plus degrees. Of course, last year was one of them. So we've got a hot next couple of days ahead. I don't believe I included the 7-day forecast in this one today, but I'll have it for next time. Just know it's going to be hot.
Yeah.
Got the potential for storms on Wednesday, more widespread, but I will say, even though we're expecting thunderstorms, that will provide some relief from the intense heat. So clouds and rain actually could be a good thing.
Yeah, so is it as icky if it gives you some relief from the heat, Nick?
What a great question.
I don't want to stump you.
Put him on the spot.
It's still an ick.
Okay.
It's still an ick. I'm not a big rain guy. I'm not. I know. Yeah.
Hard to your criteria.
Yeah.
I'm flexible though. I have wiggle room. I can admit when I'm wrong. That's not a lot,
Yeah.
but I can. So today is an ick. 4 for 4.
4 for 4.
4 for 4. I'm nailing these icks and picks. So hey, Becca, we'll see you shortly. Coming back
good.
and giving us another update on our forecast. All right, so a lot of folks are going to be outside today because there's a lot happening. Bank of America Stadium. Did you see any of the crowds in Uptown this past weekend?
I saw a video of the crowd.
Okay. I didn't know if you guys ran into.
Because I didn't want to be anywhere. You knew it was going to be a parking nightmare. A lot of people.
I thought I would see some of the. I was in Uptown,
you were in Uptown.
but I didn't because it was too early.
I just stayed in the air conditioning.
That's smart. Well,
try.
The FIFA Club World Cup is happening at Bank of America Stadium. Look, I'm going to admit I'm not a huge soccer fan, so I'm not even going to try to pronounce any of these teams. But I do know one is a Portuguese powerhouse and one is a German giant, according to our web article. And this is a high-stakes game today, a high-stakes match today. FIFA Club World Cup match. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. A lot of fun is set to be had. I'm sure some folks are already out there tailgating, having a great time. But again, it's hot.
It's all about the beer. You got to drink water.
You got to drink water. So our Miles Harris is in Uptown. Give us an update on the upcoming match, which we are less than 3 hours away from kickoff, and update on how folks are dealing with this heat. Let's check in with Miles.
Hey guys, Miles Harris, WCNC Charlotte. We are in Uptown Charlotte, where Bank of America Stadium will have another match when it comes to that FIFA Club World Cup tournament, with Benfica taking on Bayern Munich. And I want to go ahead and turn this camera around and show you the amount of fans that are already in the French Quarter area. They've got flags, a lot of Benfica, a lot of Bayern Munich fans out here outside of Valhalla, as it looks like these fans are waiting to see the team actually make their way to Bank of America Stadium. You've got fans waiting waiting outside some of these buses here. And this is the second match when it comes to this FIFA Club World Cup happening here in the Charlotte area. So we had that match on Sunday, but what separates this match, it's got to be the heat. So we got a chance to talk to some of the fans. They're saying that they drink a lot of water. They made sure that they stayed hydrated before heading out to the stadium, and that they wouldn't miss this match for the world. And again, this is a lot of excitement, not just when it comes to making sure that fans are staying hydrated, but it's also important because these fans, they tell us that they wouldn't miss this for the world. So this is also a great opportunity to really put Charlotte, that Uptown area, on the map when it comes to soccer fans, not just in our area, but throughout the world as well.
And that's Miles Harris giving us a update there in Uptown again. FIFA World Cup. Oh, hold on. FIFA Club World Cup.
It's an important distinction.
FIFA Club World Cup. Again, the match is this afternoon. Kickoff is at 3 p.m. That is a tongue twister, by the way, James.
FIFA Club World Cup?
It is.
Yeah, I don't think I could say it like 3 times fast.
You had to think about it.
You have to consciously think about that.
Yeah. So the heat not only playing a factor in Uptown, but also when it comes to transportation. You have an update for us, James.
Yes, you have Nick's picks. I have James's train beat.
Okay.
So we have the North Carolina by train service, which Amtrak operates between Charlotte and Raleigh, about 5 or 6 daily trains. They're running right now with heat-related restrictions. So they've actually canceled several of the daytime trains that run between Charlotte and Raleigh, citing the quote-unquote inclement weather. So folks who maybe went to Raleigh this morning from Charlotte might have some difficulties getting back, or vice versa. So daytime trains have been canceled. They are still going to run buses in lieu of those canceled trains, and then they hope to have tonight's return service. But anyone who is expecting to ride Amtrak services 74, 75, 76, and 77 here in North Carolina will have to take a bus or wait for a later train.
Oh, wow. Yeah, because a lot of folks from everywhere take it to Burlington, I believe, is a stop. Greensboro's a stop. There's a lot of stops here along the road here. And
kind of that I-85 corridor. You can go back and forth. And we know that elsewhere in the country, Amtrak is operating with reduced speeds or reduced service, because much like we saw yesterday across the country with the roads buckling in the heat, the physical rails also expand. So they end up canceling trains or slowing down trains because of that. And I presume that's kind of what's happening here. With today's service reductions. We reached out to find out what their plans are for the rest of the week, because as Becca just told us, the heat's not going anywhere.
Right.
And when we get that answer, we'll bring it to you here, Nick.
Oh, man. James with the trains report. Thank you for that. Yeah, that my mom just took the train a couple of years ago, but you got to think about it. Folks who live here in the area, they think, hey, I could just take the car to Charlotte, Raleigh, wherever I need to go. But she took the train, and a lot of folks use the train here. It's a vital tool here. So that some interesting information there from the James, what are we calling the James Train Report?
James Train Beat.
Okay.
Working title.
James Train Report. Okay, we'll figure that out. But some great information, seriously there. All right, let's keep the trend going. Folks are outside, but let's go almost cross country. Let's go to Oklahoma City, where there's a happy gentleman in our newsroom who's a big OKC Thunder fan.
I think I know who this gentleman is.
I'm sure he wish he was at this celebration right now, but if you don't know, OKC Thunder are our NBA champions, 2025 NBA champions. They beat Indiana Pacers in Game 7. Third quarter came, and there was no looking back. OKC turned it on, and Shai Gilgeous-Alexander is the MVP. Not only the league MVP, but also finals MVP. So he had a big year. Let's take a look in at the NBC affiliate as they are covering the championship parade that is happening there. Let's take a listen into their coverage.
We've done parades together, Caden. What are you talking about?
All right, we want to show
ones
you
we do
that.
are a lot colder.
So the players haven't made it by us yet, but you're seeing them on your screen right now. Just maybe a block or a half block away from where we're stationed here at the Omni Hotel. So they are making their way over.
Can I just tell you, seeing the confetti fly, it feels magical. It's finally reached up to where we are.
Oh, yeah.
And doesn't this feel like a beautiful snowfall celebration?
Snow would be nice.
Yeah, snow
with
would be nice. It'd be
Snowfall
really
would be
good.
nice.
It'd be really good.
Yeah,
you hear the honking, honking. You hear the honking. You see the fans waving, and you see Scissors Hill just loaded up with people. We know that a special guest will be doing some sort of presentation at Scissors Hill, and throughout the parade route, there's
well,
actually you did.
Get back down there, bud.
I put my steps in for the day already.
Oh, I love that shirt. Not Like Us, an homage to Kendrick Lamar.
I am just amazed at the amount of people. I knew there would be a lot of people.
It's a lot of people.
But
a lot of people,
There you go. There's another shot of just the sea of folks. Look, again, the players are off the bus and high-fiving people, which is just awesome to see.
I want to touch on this quote that I think SGA said. He said, "Play where your feet are." Am I missing?
Yeah, be where your feet are.
Be where your feet
present.
are.
Be present. Be in the
Can we
moment.
just take a minute? Be where our feet are right now.
Yeah.
Soak this up, guys, because this, I hope, is not a once in a lifetime, but maybe this is the start of something really good.
But to your point, these title windows close sooner than most people think they do, and you never know. It could be. It could be the only championship parade.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, drink it in.
Yeah, it could be the first. It could be the first of many, or it could be the first and only. So it's like, why not enjoy it while we're here? People are waving at us. I don't.
Yeah, I think being on the
worthy.
third floor is quite the advantage when it comes to getting a wave.
All right, looks like that shot dipped out on us. Again, you can see folks there in Oklahoma City celebrating that big victory there. Our OKC Thunder. I want to say our. There's only one fan that I know of in the newsroom. They are the NBA champs. All right, so as soon as we get that feedback, we'll try to get you back there to it. But let's go now to Washington, D.C. There is a House budget hearing with RFK Jr. He is testifying regarding the House Energy. It's a House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee hearing, and he is testifying, RFK Jr., that is, on his department's budget, Department of Health and Human Services budget. Let's take a listen in.
Said at the top of this, should he be radically transparent?
Let me ask you this. Have you accepted $400,000 from pharmaceutical companies?
The reason you know that is because I have financial disclosure forms, and I'm asking him to submit the same thing. So should he do the same thing? Because when he doesn't, let's talk about what happened. Let's talk about Mr. Brad Smith.
Should you be prevented from accepting money from pharmaceutical companies? Because it says here you've accepted $400,000.
Mr. Kennedy, you asked Ms. Ocasio-Cortez, how did I do that when she talked about the higher rates given to the Medicare Advantage organizations? I actually have an answer for you. How did that happen? The answer is Mr. Brad Smith. So he was in charge of Doge Healthcare, and his biggest investors at his company, Main Street Health, are the Medicare Advantage organizations, the 5 biggest health insurance corporations in America. They're his investors. He owns this company. They own him. And while he was there, he set the rules and reimbursements for CMS to hook up his investors. So I'm going to answer the question that you asked, Ms. Ocasio-Cortez. It is because of conflicts of interest. Do you think that CMS should continue to do business with Main Street Health under your watch? Is that radically transparent?
Are you saying that we should cut Medicare Advantage?
Do you think that Main Street Health should continue to do business with Medicare and Medicaid given the conflicts of interest?
Are you saying we should cut Medicare Advantage?
Mr. Kennedy, your dissembling and diversion distracts from the fact that you refuse to be radically transparent with either Mr. Eames or Mr. Smith. I'm going to enter for the record now documents.
You didn't give any money to United.
Claims, Auchincloss oversight letters to Means and the Board of TrueMed and Main Street.
Without objection,
all submitted.
The gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from California, Mr. Obernolte, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Well, thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, thank you for being here. I particularly appreciate your enthusiasm for using artificial intelligence to enhance productivity at HHS. I think in your testimony you said the AI revolution has arrived, and we would agree with you. I was the chairman of the House Artificial Intelligence Task Force last year, and we produced a report in December that had a whole chapter on healthcare because we believe that there is no industry in the United States that's going to be more radically transformed by AI than healthcare. You also testified about the healthcare cost challenges that we're facing in this country, the fact that we spend between 2 and 3 times per capita what other developed countries do, and we achieve worse healthcare outcomes. And I think you and I share a belief that AI can help with that. So I am delighted that you are applying AI to make HHS more efficient. I think you testified you're using it to expedite drug approvals, which is wonderful. I'm wondering, though, if how we can catalyze attacking it from the provider standpoint, because we have physicians that spend twice as much time on administration as they do on patient care. And we've got reports from think tanks that indicate that if we utilize AI effectively, we can cut 10% off of the cost of providing health care to Americans. So what can HHS do to catalyze the adoption of AI and the securing of those benefits on the provider side?
We're doing that at every level of the department, and I'm surprised it's only 10%. It's just the waste, fraud, and abuse, and particularly the fraud. AI has the capacity to detect fraud now. And we're using it in the department for that reason. We're using it for diagnostics. We're using it for paperwork. The agreement that I made yesterday with the pharmaceutical companies should cut off much more than that from paperwork from doctors. And so we're using it everywhere that we can, and we hope to drive it into the healthcare system in this country at every level, including the providers.
Right. Well, I think that there's no more powerful pulpit for evangelizing that than the post that you hold. And so I hope that you will help drive that, because it's not enough that just HHS uses AI to increase its productivity. We need to make sure we get this adopted within industry and within the provider community. And a follow-up question on that. I've talked to stakeholders across the industry about what they're doing to use AI, using AI to improve healthcare. There is a large level of frustration with organizations like CMS, and I don't think it's intentional. I just think it's a big bureaucracy and they're kind of hidebound, where someone comes up with a really revolutionary AI-based, I don't know, a diagnostic tool or a treatment option, but there just isn't accommodation in the system for it. There isn't a billing code, or there isn't a recognition that these can lead to cost savings. So, you know, we obviously want to be good stewards of taxpayer money as well, but how can we change the rules to make sure that we're saving the money that we should be saving with AI?
We need people at Medicare, at Medicaid, and at CMS, a leadership that is absolutely committed to this transformation. And we have that today. We have Dr. Oz, we have Chris Klump, and who came out of the tech arena and is now using his knowledge to transform what we do there. People send me every day of the week. People are sending me innovative ideas that sound wonderful, and we have a way to screen those now. I send them over to Chris Klump. I send them over to Clark Minor. We brought people in just to do AI and that kind of transformation. And those ideas are being explored one at a time, and the ones that work are being innovated, are being introduced and integrated into our system. So we're doing that today. You're going to see major changes over the next 4 years.
Right. Well, I'm very happy to hear that. I think it's going to require a partnership between the executive branch and us here in the legislative branch to make that possible. And if you haven't read the health section of our task force report, I'd encourage you to peruse that, because we're going to need to work together to get this done. But thank you very much for your testimony.
Thank you, Congressman.
The gentleman yields. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from Louisiana, Representative Carter, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Secretary Kennedy, I want to ask you about how the department is gutting our federal investment in prevention and treatment of HIV. I'm perplexed why in April your administration shuttered nearly every unit in the CDC's division of HIV prevention and reassigned CDC's top HIV official, Dr. Jonathan Merman. Given that CDC has historically been the cornerstone of domestic HIV prevention efforts, do you know the percentage of all federal funding for HIV prevention provided by your agency, CDC?
Congressman, we don't intend to cut HIV treatment. We are part of the reorg is reassigning HIV treatment.
But respectfully, sir, you have. It's not the response to your answer to the question. What I'd like you to know is it's 91% of all federal funding for HIV prevention. 91% These cuts have been devastating for prevention of critical trials. You say you don't want to cut, but the reality is you have. Sir, in a second. According to a report in the American Association of Medical Colleges, AAMC, 160 active clinical trials associated with NIH overall were terminated in 2025, and more than 1/3 of those, 38%, investigating topics were related to HIV/AIDS. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to unanimously enter into the record impact on NIH grant terminations that have been sanctioned and approved by this agency.
Without objection.
We have 27 HIV departments. We spend $7.5 billion a year, not $1 billion, but $7.5 billion. Those are being consolidated and transferred to the Agency for Healthy America.
Respectfully, Mr. Secretary, there have been cuts. We're not talking about consolidation. We're talking about cuts midstream, in the middle of research, in the middle of action. Let me be more specific, an example of what these cuts in HIV clinical trials mean. The Adolescent Trial Network for HIV Intervention, which supports studies of teenagers and young adults, received a stop work order that shut down research at 14 sites where 7 studies were being conducted. Were you aware of that, sir?
We have not,
Were you aware of that,
as
sir?
far as I know, we have not cut any clinical
Were
trials.
you aware of that, sir, respectfully?
As I said.
Were you aware, sir? Yes or no? Either you were or you weren't.
As far as I know, we haven't cut any clinical
But I'm telling you by your own records you are, so apparently that means you were not aware. Number two, Mr. Secretary, were you aware that your department green-lighted these grants for termination? Did you make these decisions?
Like I said, as far as information that I've heard from this side of the aisle today has been untrue. Mischaracterization.
Mr. Secretary, you're testifying that you are unaware who within the administration of your department made decisions to terminate research at 14 sites where 7 studies were being conducted. This is unacceptable, sir. Lastly, I'd like to bring your attention to termination of HIV vaccine studies. These cuts make up $258 million. Secretary Kennedy, did you make the decision to terminate these studies?
I didn't personally make that decision, but I understand.
You sanctioned them. How could you possibly justify such an action?
We've been studying been promising an HIV vaccine since 1984. And every year Congress pours money into it, and every year
because they haven't come up with
it accomplishes
cut the
nothing.
forward motion by getting rid of NIH dollars that critically do research that save lives, and because it hasn't happened yet, well, we haven't. Sir, it's my time. It's my time. Show me one life. It's my time, sir.
Show me one.
I can show you a whole lot of lives if you got a minute. I'm insulted that you would suggest that there aren't lives that have been lost. People are dying every day, sir. And for you to say, show me one, there are people all over this country that are suffering the loss of their loved ones. Sir, here's the reality. Here's a whole bunch of studies that I'd like to submit for unanimous consent to the record that will debunk many of the things that you're saying and will in fact prove that you aren't being forthright with us or the American people. May I, sir?
Without objection.
As we look and we listen and we see where we are, the challenge and the fear, sir, of the state of now and the arrogance and the unwillingness to be forthright with the American people. Mr. Secretary, your uncle, President John F. Kennedy, and your father, Senator Robert F. Kennedy, were towering champions for working Americans, for justice, for dignity, and for those without a voice. They fought to lift people up. So I'll ask this rhetorical question as I end.
The gentleman's time has
What
expired.
happened?
The
What
gentleman's time has expired. The chair now recognizes the gentleman from New York, Mr. Langworthy, for 5 minutes of questioning.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Secretary, first, I'd just like to offer you a moment to respond to the outlandish claims that were put in front of you just now.
Yeah, as I said, we've got 27 HIV divisions. Some of those were cut. Some of the studies that were not, where we poured billions of dollars in and they were yielding nothing, have been cut. We're looking for a real solution. And we're looking to do evidence-based, gold standard science. And we're going to do that, and we're going to do it to take care of the most desperate, most vulnerable Americans, including people of HIV. And there has been no withdrawal of any of that commitment.
Thank you very much, Mr. Secretary, and I appreciate your leadership and your vision and your efforts to make America healthy again. One area that's of particular importance to me in my district is newborn screening. And with changes to the Advisory Committee on Heritable Disorders in Newborns and Children, there's some uncertainty about the future of recommended.
All right, so you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturtevant. We're at the top of the hour. It is 1 o'clock here on the stream. All right, so right now you're watching live the House Energy and Commerce Subcommittee hearing with the Department of Health and Human Services, the head of the Department of Health and Human Services, Secretary RFK Jr. This is in D.C. They're talking about the budget with that department. So you saw there, it got fiery at points during this hearing. So we're going to come back to that at some point. On the top right, you're taking a live look in the Netherlands. President Trump is set to arrive at the NATO summit. Below that is a party outside at Oklahoma City, Oklahoma. Oklahoma City Thunder celebrating their victory, their NBA championship. They won the NBA Finals in a Game 7, the first Game 7 in a while. So very great series, a good game. Shout out to OKC Thunder, best team in the league this year. So there you go. All right, so we want to come back home because we want to follow up on a story involving Charlotte Douglas airport workers and their call to city leaders when it comes to better wages, benefits, and safer working conditions. Now, if go back to April, you will remember workers urged council members to support the Charlotte Acting for Safety and Efficiency Ordinance, also known as CASE. And we have an update to this story. Julie Kay is here in the studio. That was from April, late April. What is the update now? I know City Council met last night. So what can you tell us?
And it was a really long City Council meeting. This was their last one before they go on a summer break. So lots to get to. But at the very end, Councilwoman Tijuana Brown brought up, we've got all these airport workers here. They came for public comment, as they have time and time again over the last couple months. Let's get this on the agenda. And after quite a bit of back and forth, the answer is no, we're not putting this on the agenda for the future. That doesn't necessarily mean never. Basically, it came down to a tie-breaking vote for Mayor Vi Lyles. It was a 4-4 back and forth, and she went with the no vote. She said it's not ready yet. So I'm hoping to talk to some airport workers later today. I've been chatting with the union, and they're setting me up with someone to just talk about what do we do now? What do you mean it's not ready yet? What does that conversation look like going forward? But obviously very disappointing after the multiple rounds of coverage we've done on it. Yeah. Pretty much for the last few months since April, every time you go to a city council meeting, especially if there's public forum involved, you're going to run into some airport workers. So definitely a blow to their push.
And they were already disappointed. I remember we covered correct me if I'm wrong, we covered a press conference and city leaders promised to show up and they did not come. If you remember what I'm talking, if you remember, I know I kind of threw this out there, but
no, we did. We showed up. I believe it was a few weeks ago, maybe a month ago, and I don't know that they ever got confirmation from City Council that they were going to come. Okay. But they did ask, and they gave them plenty of warning. Say, hey, we've got these letters from city or airport workers, talking about the conditions we're facing, why we need these higher wages, why we need guaranteed sick days, why we need better equipment and supplies to be able to clean the airplanes properly. These letters, hundreds of them, they wanted to hand deliver to City Council, and City Council was not even in the building. That was, I believe, around like 11 a.m. noon before a City Council meeting. So the odds of them being, nobody there is, slim but not impossible. But they did have a heads up, and so no, they were disappointed about that. It wasn't a great sign for the future of the CASE ordinance, but I think they were surprised that it didn't even end up on an agenda at all to be discussed in a committee.
One of the things we talked about, optics, right? Related but not related. You're talking about the PAVE Act and how this sort of factors in. Can you explain that?
Yeah, and so some of that I mentioned was a really long discussion last night, and Councilman Malcolm Graham brought up, kind of everything going on in Raleigh right now. Like everyone was kind of saying we need to be careful about what we do or don't do right now because the city of Charlotte, remember, is asking legislators in Raleigh to do something. legislators in Raleigh, not always the biggest fans of Charlotte, depending on what the issue is. Basically, what they're asking is, the 1 cent sales tax, trying to get that on the ballot, either hopefully this year, or maybe later if not, to expand our transit programs. That's buses, that's pathways, but that's most importantly, I think for a lot of people, another light rail. So they're thinking about that as the PAVE Act, the thing that would allow that to get onto the ballot, is being discussed today. Now, it hasn't necessarily passed the House or anything like that, but it is up for that potential, and so they don't want to make any moves that would disrupt. But if you look at Charlotte Douglas, we're talking transit, that's one of the biggest draws to Charlotte and has been forever. So how are we going to, ask for this big thing but not invest in our airport, I think is kind of the situation we're dealing with. And what the workers are saying is, hey, it's not just about, I need to be able to, feed my kids and pay my rent, obviously, but it's also the experience of the people that are going through the airport that will make it better for everyone who goes through Charlotte Douglas, who lives and works here and has to travel, people vacationing. I talked to people who are in charge of, ADA services. They're like, I have to push 2 wheelchairs at the same time. That's not safe and that's not fair. And that's not helpful for the people who need my services. I can't give them the full attention. I mentioned supplies for cleaning the airplane. People are saying we don't necessarily have what we need to clean the airport properly and quickly. That obviously can cause delays. That can cause a bad experience for customers. So it goes beyond just, what we've heard time and time again from all sorts of different groups of, we want higher pay, inflation, and we want to, earn a livable wage. This is something that directly impacts, they say, a high turnover rate that makes people's experience worse at the airport. Wow, yeah, and you think about it, it just in general, your airport in a lot of your cities, like same size as Charlotte, big cities, that is the welcome sign for a lot of folks when they come into town. So it's just an interesting story. A lot of developments in this story, and I know you said you're going to speak with airport workers a little later. Where can folks check out your story, or when can folks check out your story? I'll be on today at 6. All right, Julie, thank you. Always untangling stuff when it comes to politics. That's Julie K there with her story concerning the case ordinance when it comes to airport workers at Charlotte Douglas. Thank you, Julie. Thank you. All right there. And again, you can catch your story tonight at 6 o'clock. James, where are we going to go to next?
Just as you were talking to Julie, we got new video in from aboard Air Force One, President Trump en route to the Netherlands, as we just told you, and he spoke to reporters who were aboard the plane. If we want to play that video back. Yeah, let's take a listen in.
But I'm committed to being their friends. I've become friends with many of those leaders, and I'm committed to helping them.
What do you want the role of NATO to be going forward once these other countries are spending more?
By having a unified system, I think we're going to have stronger peace, better peace, and I think we have that. When I went to NATO, they were broke. When I first started this whole thing, it seems like a long time ago, 9 years, right? But they were broke. I knew it immediately. I said, you guys are broke. They weren't paying their dues. 7 of the 28 countries, at the time it was 28, were paying their dues, but they weren't paying very much. NATO was broke. Then I said, you're going to have to pay, and we did a whole thing, and now they're paying a lot. Then I said, you're going to have to lift it to 4% or 5%, and 5% is better. And I guess they're voting on that today, but they're going to be lifting it to 5%. That's good. It gives them much more power.
Mr. President, if there's language in the final summit declaration about aggression by Russia, would you be okay with that kind of language?
Well, I'll have to take a look at it, but I'd like to see a deal with Russia. As you know, Vladimir called me up. He said, can I help you with Iran? I said, no, I don't need help with Iran. I need help with you. And I hope we're going to be getting a deal done with Russia. It's a shame. 6,000 soldiers died last week. More, 6,500 soldiers died last week. Russia, Ukraine, a war that never would have happened if I was president. So enjoy your flight.
Let me ask you one more follow-up. In your comments just now about Article 5, that will probably make some people in Europe concerned. Can you clarify what you mean? Are you still committed to mutual defense?
I'm committed to saving lives. I'm committed to life and safety. And I'm going to give you an exact definition when I get there. I just don't want to do it on the back of an airplane.
And one other question on energy. What's your take on the oil price situation right now, and are you concerned?
I love it. It dropped almost $10 yesterday. I put out a statement, get it down, because a lot of people aren't able to do things when the energy goes down. We're going to have a lot less conflict. So it came down, and our energy department's doing a great job. We're drilling like we've never drilled before. We're keeping it down. We're going to keep it down until all these wars are settled. Thank you very much, everybody. I'll see you.
Iranian sleeper cells in the United States.
Biden let a lot of supercells. And Biden was an incompetent president, had no idea what he was doing. He hardly ever signed a document. Other people signed documents for him with the auto pen. It was gross incompetence. And among everything else, he let a lot of supercells in, many from Iran. But hopefully we'll take care of them. What Biden did to this country should never be forgotten.
Sir, do you think you'll get the Nobel Peace Prize now?
All right, so that is President Trump from moments ago on board of Air Force One, answering questions. He's attending the NATO summit amid, a shaky Iran and Israel ceasefire deal that's on the table. President Trump and NATO counterparts are due to gather for the summit. And this is the world's biggest security organization around a new defense spending pledge, or widened divisions among the 32 allies. So this is a huge summit, a lot at stake there. So we're going to continue to check in on that, and as soon as President Trump arrives at the Netherlands, we will take that live for you. All right, so we want to shift now to D.C., where right now NTSB is holding a what you call this, a press conference?
It looks like they're speaking to reporters after an hours-long meeting this morning regarding the January 2024 door plug incident. Remember on the West Coast when a door plug came off an aircraft? So they were talking about their findings.
And this was near Portland, Oregon, right?
That's right. It was Alaska Airways.
We showed part of the hearing this morning on Life Impact.
Okay. All right. So this is NTSB Chairwoman Jennifer Homendy. So let's take a listen into what she is saying right now.
Catastrophic. I said that from the very beginning, there was a lot that went right in a very terrible circumstance. I do credit the crew, their professionalism. They took quick action. Was it completely perfect? No, there are areas where we'll talk about with communications that could have been better. We always look at those opportunities to improve safety. But this was incredible communication between the captain and the first officer. They had, as they are required to do, pre-planned where they were going to land and go back to in an event, an emergency. So even when they had those communications issues in the cockpit, they both knew where they were going back to. They were prepared. With that said, there was a lot of chaos in the cabin. You could hear that when talking with the flight attendants afterwards. It was a very scary event, and it could have been substantially worse.
You said to not necessarily blame one or a few individuals on the factory floor at Boeing, but this is kind of where I feel there's a bit of a disconnect, is that the failure did occur on the factory floor. So what would you say to that? I mean, this is a Boeing failure at its root, right?
Yeah, so Boeing relied on a single point of failure, which was a human not filing or documenting a record. And that was a flaw in the system. They relied on their personnel, who was relatively new, not trained, and we talked about how this was a non-routine task. What that means is it's just out of the ordinary. It's not something the personnel had a lot of experience with. They weren't trained for it, and the training that they did receive was mainly on-the-job training from others who had been there for a couple of years, who themselves didn't have formal training. So we can focus on individuals, which we don't do. We focus on what were the process deficiencies, where was the breakdown that allowed this to happen. I say this a lot, it is not my quote, it is a professor from MIT. Human error is a symptom of a system that needs to be redesigned, and we're seeing that here. Human error is a symptom of a system that needs to be redesigned. They are redesigning their processes and looking at redesigning the door plug itself.
Can I ask, back in India for a second, it's been 12 days since the crash, and apparently there's no decision yet where the recorders are going to be read. Are you concerned that India is not complying with its Annex 13 obligations that requires a timely reading of the recorders, and that we're not going to get any investigative information we should be in a timely fashion?
Well, the only thing I will share on Air India, and again, under ICAO rules, we are there as the U.S. accredited representative and are assisting in the investigation. Each country has their own investigative process, but I will tell you I've had excellent communication with those within the Indian government, the Ministry of Civil Aviation, also our counterpart at the AAIB. That communication has been excellent directly with me, our team, and then also with others throughout the investigation that we're working with that are providing technical assistance for us, including Boeing and GE and the FAA.
Do you have any concerns about when they'll be read or where they'll be read or whether they would come to the U.S., for example?
Well, I mean, that's something that I'm going to defer commenting on right now. I mean, that is something that has to be worked out with the team, and I need to get an update on where things are today. I will say when it comes to aviation safety, learning information shortly thereafter and obtaining that information is a key part of the investigative process. So clearly that's going to help us glean more information to ensure is there a safety issue or safety deficiency that needs to be addressed.
A couple more and then we'll wrap it up.
How concerning is it that the regulation as it stands the SMS process doesn't apply to subcontractors or suppliers, that only major manufacturers have to have it in place by 2027? I mean, if it's not across the board, doesn't it leave gaps in that system as well?
Well, it did leave gaps. I mean, it left gaps in the system already where Boeing had a voluntary SMS that was actually mandated as part of the settlement agreement. And that already left a gap with manufacturers not having to comply with requirements for SMS, and then they were much farther behind the airlines in implementing. We do recommend SMS for all throughout transportation, but not just in transportation. I mean, we have our own safety management systems here at the NTSB. So definitely with suppliers, especially when you're talking about aircraft, it's needed. And I would say also for the FAA as well.
Thanks a lot. Anybody else? Thank you.
Okay.
Okay. Now we're going to do Tom.
Do you want to go somewhere, or do you want to do it here?
It's right here.
Okay,
I
great.
just had one question
Am I
for
still
you.
right here?
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdeman. Right there was a press conference that just wrapped up. The NTSB holding that press conference after a public board meeting today to determine the cause of the in-flight separation of a mid-exit door plug on a Boeing plane near Oregon, Portland, Oregon. That happened last year. This is video from after that incident, I believe. So that press conference just wrapping up. All right, so let's come back home now. Let's get to a story that has been a big story now for the last few weeks, and we're talking about the mass shooting in Catawba County. So today, and look, there have been a lot of developments between when it happened to where we are now. And we did hear from officials again as they announced indictments in this case. 6 men were indicted in connection to this mass shooting. WCNC Charlotte's Jesse Pierre is there, Catawba County, with the latest on this case. Let's take a listen in.
Well, we are learning Sean Hood, he was one of the victims who was shot and killed at the party. 11 others were injured. And Hood was not shot by one of the gunmen arrested. He was actually caught in the crossfire. Now, look at your screen right now. These 6 men, all referred to as the Hillside Shooters, Toland Huff Jr., Isaiah Mitchell, Zachary Bates, Keandre Mack, Garen Killian, and Charles Kincaid, accused of planning and shooting into the crowd of about 100 people at the pool party. All of them charged with 1 count of conspiracy to commit first-degree murder and 63 counts of attempted first-degree murder. Zoe Braswell is also facing 4 counts of accessory after the fact to attempted first-degree murder. Investigators also say all of the gunmen involved have gang affiliations. Now, multiple firearms and shell casings were recovered from the scene where about 80 shots were fired. Investigators say people at the party were also armed. And again, we have more information on how Hood was shot. Listen in.
Our investigation has revealed that the person responsible for killing Sean Hood was attempting to return fire at the hillside shooters and inadvertently struck Sean Hood.
What happened was not only unthinkable, it was deliberate, it was coordinated, and it was intended to cause mass harm. What happened was senseless. There is simply no justification, none whatsoever, for firing into a crowd of people.
Again, 11 people were hurt in that shooting, and Sean Hood is the one who passed away in that shooting. They're still trying to look into his involvement in the party, but you know, from what they've shared so far, some level of promotion of that party. Now, investigators say the case remains active, and they are calling to the public for more information. If you were at the party and you have not been spoken to by law enforcement, you should call Catawba County Sheriff's Office and let them know, and anyone else who was at the party or may have information into this shooting.
All right, so that is Jesse Pierre giving us an update on the mass shooting there in Catawba County. Indictments there. She will have additional updates on the news at 4 o'clock and 5 o'clock right here on WCNC Plus and on TV on WCNC Charlotte. All right, so it is hot outside. It is hot. I can't say that enough. It's hot. Look, it is what it is, right? But we want you to be safe. We are weather alert. We want you to do all the things to keep yourself safe in this heat. But let's check in with meteorologist Majestic Storm for a look at our forecast.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and today is a weather alert day. Not just today, but tomorrow as well, because we're tracking still very high temperatures, high humidity, making for multiple days in a row of dangerously hot conditions. You can see the National Weather Service has multiple heat advisories and extreme heat warnings in effect for us. All counties shaded in this orange means we're really bringing that heat and humidity. Yesterday it was hot. Today it gets even hotter, and it's not just for us across the Carolinas, but several states across the country dealing with this extreme heat. So we really need to start paying attention to this, making sure that you're getting outside sooner rather than later as you're making those plans for your errands or anything you need to do outside as we're heading into our Tuesday and Wednesday, and even on Thursday it's still going to be pretty warm. Look at those feel-like temperatures as we're heading into the afternoon across the country. Triple-digit heat index values for us across Atlanta, Charleston, and straight up to the northeast. Back west, boy, that's feeling nice with 70s. Now, yesterday we topped off at 98 degrees. That was where we topped off for our high, and today it gets even hotter with our air temperature rising into the triple digits, and that's even before you add in the humidity. Once you add in that humidity, at times it could feel 105 degrees or even higher. Now, it's going to be even a hot day today across the mountains. Look at that, 88 degrees in Boone. A gorgeous day, though. Plenty of sunshine out there. Lower end of the 80s out towards Banner Elk. As we look towards Lenoir, 96 is where you'll top off this afternoon, 97 in Morganton. And then as we bring it back home across Charlotte and Gastonia, 100 degrees. Again, that's before you add in the humidity, and once you do that, that's when it's going to feel even hotter. As you look over towards Rock Hill, 100 degrees this afternoon, much of the same out towards Chesterfield. So if you know somebody who doesn't have air conditioning, give them a call. Make sure they have a game plan, because this is going to be extreme heat, because not only is it very hot during the day, but we're not getting a lot of that overnight cooling that we need to get a little bit of relief. Feel like temperatures compared to our air temperatures by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to be 98 degrees, but once you add in that humidity, it's feeling like it's 105 degrees. Over the next 3 days, we're still bringing those above average temperatures, 100 degrees today, 97 degrees by tomorrow, but notice the chances for showers and thunderstorms. They may return for our Wednesday forecast. You can see not just Wednesday, but possibly an isolated thunderstorm or two on Thursday as well. But really, it seems like Wednesday could be our best next opportunity for some showers and thunderstorms. Taking you into our Wednesday now, here's about noon. You'll start to see a few more clouds move in, showers and a few pockets of storms. Wherever you're seeing yellows and oranges right there, that's where we're going to see brief heavy downpours and where we could see some of those storms form. Not just your typical thunderstorm that pops up in the summertime, but we're concerned some of those storms could actually turn strong to severe. So just make sure you stay close to our weather team. If any of those storms do turn severe, likely they'll bring a high wind and possibly a hail risk with them. Temperatures are cranking up today and then gradually starting to cool down near our normal this upcoming weekend. Definitely not cool, but we'll take those lower end of the 90s compared to those triple digits like what we're going to see today. Rain chances will start to increase come Wednesday, but again today and tomorrow you might want to get outside, water your grass early in the morning time and then again later on in the evening time, since we've been struggling with picking up that precipitation. 7-day forecast looks like this. Weather alert days today and tomorrow going to be all about that dangerous heat and humidity. If you have any outdoor pets, make sure they're also taken care of, providing plenty of shade, fresh clean water for them, or just bring them inside. It is hot for us, it's hot for them, and you can see those 90s will continue throughout the weekend.
All right, that was a majestic storm with a look at your forecast. All right now, happening live on Capitol Hill is these are House Democratic leaders speaking to reporters. Let's take a listen in.
And be held accountable and say why we should spend taxpayer dollars and send our men and women to someplace around the world into conflict, why we should do that, and to be accountable for it in real time. That's why the involvement of Congress matters. Because nobody will ever tell me things would have been different in Iraq and Afghanistan had we actually had that debate, had we actually pushed that accountability. We know it would have been. So Congress needs to step up. I know the House Democrats are ready to step up. We're already leading to reinsert ourselves into matters of war and peace. It's time for the Republicans to step up too and say enough is enough. We have an independent constitutional obligation to support our military, to support our troops, and to discharge our obligations under the Constitution, regardless of what Donald Trump says. We are not asking them to storm the beaches of Normandy or to give their lives for this country. We are asking them to step up and fulfill their constitutional obligations. And with that, it is my pleasure to introduce the intrepid whip of the House Democrats, Catherine Clark from Massachusetts.
Thank you so much, Congressman Crow, and thank you for your service to our country, both your military service and your service, and to all of you. And thank you to our chairman and vice chairman for pulling this together. Our message today is clear. The Constitution is not a document of convenience. It is there to guarantee that there is accountability because it is the people's voice of this country. It is American families who are feeling every day that it is hard to get ahead, who need to be informed of when this country is going to have military strikes and go to war. And that is where representative government comes in. That is the design. That as members of Congress, we are here representing our districts and the voice of the American people. So when we have a president and an administration and now a Republican party in Congress that has decided the American people are not entitled to know anything, it is a trust us. We are doing what we're doing. You are just here to pay the taxes while we debate these things internally without your representatives involved. That is an outrage and an insult to families at home, who at this time, where 60% of American families are feeling they can't provide the basics while we are debating a GOP bill that wants to take away health care from 16 million Americans that wants to take away food programs, strip funding from veterans' benefits. The audacity of then coming forward and saying all that. We feel that you are not entitled to the basic information around our national security and such profound decisions about whether to go to war or not. This is far beyond a briefing and what day it will be held. It is the fact that we have been demanding information on behalf of American families, of American veterans, of those who are in active duty and their families who deserve answers on what our country is committing as far as foreign action and why. Thank you.
Next, co-chair Maggie Goodlanders.
Thank you so much. I'm really grateful to our leadership and to my colleagues who are part of this task force, which I'm really proud to be part of. I represent the live free or die state of New Hampshire here in Congress, and we've got freedom-loving patriots right here on this podium who believe deeply in our mission and our role. And what I'd say is I'm about to turn it over to Derek Tran, who, like my dad, joined the military at age 18. My dad, Ted, always said he got his education in the United States Navy, and so did I. I really did. I served 11 years as an intelligence officer in the Navy Reserve. I learned in the Navy that, and saw firsthand, that the United States of America has brutal and determined enemies all across the world, including in Iran. I saw firsthand how our patriotic service members, when they take an oath to this document, I bring my Constitution with me everywhere I go in this job because it's a useful document to have these days for questions big and small. When they take an oath to this, they mean it. And I also learned in the Navy firsthand why our framers were really smart to give Congress a central role in American national security and in matters of war and peace, because there are no more consequential decisions than can be made. What we see today is an administration that is completely ignoring the role of Congress in matters of war and peace, and it's having real consequences. It's been said. You know, we just came back. I was pounding the pavement all across New Hampshire. I heard from the families of service members who are asking basic questions, questions that this administration should be answering to the American people about why we went ahead and conducted a military strike without congressional authorization, what the impact of that strike was. What damage did it do to Iran's nuclear program and their nuclear industrial base? And what is the plan now? This is why Congress has got a role in questions of war and peace, and why this administration is going to have to answer to us. I'm really proud to be in this effort alongside all of you, and delighted to turn it over to my colleague and Army veteran, I'll allow it, go Navy, Derek Tran.
Thank you so much, Rep. Goodlander. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for coming, and thank you especially to my colleagues with whom I am so proud to stand shoulder to shoulder with. I joined the Army Reserves when I was 18 years old. I walked into that recruitment office because I was committed to giving back to the country that has given me so much. My parents fled a communist dictatorship and came to the United States seeking the freedom and democracy that define the core of our national values. I brought that background with me to Congress, and I'm so proud to lend my voice as a leader of the House Democratic Caucus on the National Security Task Force. Just this week, we learned in terrifying detail just how important our voices are at this critical moment. Iran and its proxies pose a serious threat to our nation, and American people are looking for measured, steady leadership to protect our national security. They're not seeing it from President Trump. They're not seeing it from congressional Republicans who refuse to hold this president accountable. I am proud to stand with my colleagues today to urge a stronger, more stable approach to our national security. We are committed to keeping our service members safe. We are committed to protecting U.S. global leadership, and we don't want our country dragged into another reckless war. It is critical that we exhaust all diplomatic options to de-escalate this conflict because we do not want more of our soldiers put in harm's way. The United States has been the sole global superpower for decades, not only because of our military might, but because of our values, our adherence to the Constitution, and our respect to the rule of law. We're here today because we refuse to stand by while this legacy is under threat. Thank you so much, and I'm going to turn it back to our chairman for questions.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you, colleagues. Questions? Nick?
Congressman Al Green's impeachment resolution is coming up on the floor. Do you expect Democratic leadership to vote to table it?
I anticipate that Democrats will vote to table this, and I'll be among them voting to table it, yeah. Michael?
You mentioned at the top, Chairman, that Donald Trump wants to get the bill on his desk by July 4th so that he can celebrate Independence Day by throwing 16 million people off their health insurance. How will House Democrats, you all have done days of action during recesses, you held press conferences, had different types of events. As this thing gets closer to the Senate taking it up and potentially coming back to the House, what can Americans expect to see from House Democrats as this gets down to the wire on pushing back against the SNAP cuts, the Medicaid cuts, within the context of this Iran-Israel conflict? You all are balancing a lot of different kind of walking and chewing gum at the same time. What can folks expect in this fight against the bill as it comes back?
All of this is, as my colleague said, all of this is about the American people. You know, their safety and security is front of mind, whether it's keeping them out of harm's way and protecting their national security or looking out for their health and safety. All of that fits within the same theme, and that is the focus of House Democrats, is how do we make lives better for folks in our community. But we're not going to be distracted. We're not going to take our eye off the ball. The Senate is going to do whatever the Senate has to do, but we know that this bill is coming back at some point. We can't control when that happens, but as we get closer to that, we will use our voices and we will be very clear with the American public, guided by, and this shocks our Republican colleagues, guided by the facts, guided by the CBO saying this is going to kick 16 million people off of their health insurance, guided by the nonpartisan analysis that says this is going to put a $4 trillion hole in the deficit. Those are things that House Democrats will continue to amplify. And what that means to folks in our community is this means people are going to lose their health care. This means hospitals are going to close. That's what's at stake, and House Democrats are going to continue to use every tool we can. If we're here over the next intervening days or whatever that holds, we're going to make our voices heard back home and across this country using our voices and getting the word out. Vice Chair Lee?
So, again, this big, ugly bill is the largest health care cut in U.S. history. And according to the facts, as Chairman Aguilar laid them out, 16 million people are going to lose their health care. And why? Why are we doing this? Tax breaks for billionaires. That's literally what the bill does. And the more the American people find out about the bill, the more they dislike it. Even now, this bill is 21 points under water, a shockingly low result, only matched by Donald Trump's polling approval, which the latest AP poll had him at 21 points underwater, with 60% disapproving of Trump's job performance. So what Trump Republicans are doing is not popular, and the more American people find out, the more they dislike it.
Thank you. As far as the briefing on Iran that was supposed to be this afternoon, could you just walk us through any conversations that you've had with Republican leadership about this briefing and why they say it was canceled, whether there's any plans to hold it on a date in the future?
I don't have anything that isn't public. I read it on X as well, just like everybody else. I assume that this will come up in the next few days, but I find it incredibly frustrating and difficult that we can't get the answers to our questions. Are our service members in harm's way? Was this a successful mission? Where is the enriched uranium? These are all fairly straightforward questions, and Congress deserves answers. This isn't a partisan issue. I hope we get answers to those questions. We have no idea on the timing. Representative Crow.
I think it's really important to underscore that the president, any president, has self-defense authority under Article 2 of the Constitution, but to meet that threshold, you have to show that there is an imminent risk of attack against Americans or U.S. facilities. That's the standard. As a member of the Armed Services Committee and the House Intelligence Committee, I have not seen any evidence leading up to the attack that there was an imminent risk to Americans or to U.S. facilities to meet that threshold. So the administration has to answer for that. And that's why it's really important we get answers quickly, because this is the type of situation that could spin out of control very rapidly.
Just to follow up on Nick's question about the impeachment motion to table today. Obviously, the Democrats have been against pushing back the big, beautiful bill. Several other issues, you have shown a unified force. On issues like this, as it relates to impeachment, is it unhelpful for your members to come forward and put an issue on the table like impeachment that divides the caucus?
Members are going to represent their constituents and their communities. Members have gone back home, they've had town halls, they've heard from their constituents. They bring back those ideas and those interests every week. That is the nature of this place. At this time, at this moment, we are focusing on what this big, ugly bill is going to do. I think anything outside of that is a distraction, because this is the most important thing that we can focus on. And so that's what we plan to do in the next days that we're here, and that's what I expect members to carry forward.
Thank you. So these past couple of days, Democrats have been calling on the White House and Republicans in general to disclose more information about these strikes. But in terms of the actual policy of the U.S. striking Iran, where does House Democratic leadership stand? What is the official stance? And also, are you guys going to be giving members talking points with regards to the policy itself?
Well, we will lean on our committees of jurisdiction, but also the Democratic Caucus National Security Task Force that you see some of the members behind us. As you saw, the War Powers Resolution introduced by ranking members Meeks, Adam Smith, and Jim Himes. Those are going to be the committees of jurisdiction that guide us on these issues. What I can tell you is, I'd just echo what Representative Crow mentioned, the President has Article 2 authority, but he needs to discuss that with us. If there is an imminent threat to the United States, the Gang of Eight needs to be read in on that. There was not a Gang of Eight meeting prior to this, prior to the bombing. So those are concerns that we have. We respect and can appreciate the separation of powers. We understand that even when the president doesn't respect Article 1, they should know that we respect Article 2. But that still means that there is a process. We need to follow that process and ensure healthy communication, especially when it comes to national security interests that affect our troops abroad. Mike?
On the War Powers question, Mr. Liu, you mentioned Syria and Obama, and those strikes, of course, happened without congressional approval. Speaker Johnson, just a few hours ago, ticked off a longer list of examples of Democratic administrations taking similar steps. Doesn't that kind of undermine your argument that, hey, look at these big bad Republicans violating the Constitution with these strikes, when Democratic administrations have done similar things in the past?
Yeah. Just because it was wrong then doesn't mean it's not wrong now. The Constitution is the Constitution, and it says only Congress has the power to declare war. And it's been a bipartisan problem, with Congress ceding way too much power to the executive branch. And if you look at what J.D.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, you're watching House Democratic leaders in D.C. on Capitol Hill giving a press conference. Walking up the stairs there for the NATO summit, that is President Zelensky with Ukraine's president. He has just arrived there. On the bottom right, we are awaiting for President Trump to deboard Air Force One as he sets to arrive to the NATO summit. He just landed moments ago. You saw it here live on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. So as these leaders start to trickle into the summit, we'll continue to check in and give you updates. But let's listen now to, and as we await for President Trump to deboard off of Air Force One, we want to get you back to that press conference that's happening right now. Do we want to go back to the press conference?
Yeah,
Yeah. Let's go back to the press conference House leaders are having right now.
And abused for too long by too many different people, right? The difference here is that House Democrats take that seriously. We're stepping up to do something about it. And in the absence of leadership by the Republicans who control the House of Representatives and the Senate, once again, House Democrats are stepping up to lead and to make the tough decisions to do the right thing so the American people don't have to foot the bill for reckless misadventures and foreign policy failures. That's the difference. But I think, a lot of this discussion around war powers and authorizations for use of military force, let's not forget what we're trying to achieve here, right? House Democrats know the danger that Iran poses to the world. We know the danger that Iran poses to American troops. I know. I was in Iraq when Iran was training and equipping its militias and blowing up my units and the people that I served with. We understand that it's a state sponsor of terror and one of the more malignant regimes in the world. So we want to do something about it. But we want to do something that is permanent and is verifiable. We understand you cannot bomb your way out of this. It has to be permanent and it has to be verifiable. And that will only be done at a negotiating table when we get back to an agreement similar but different from the one that Donald Trump tore up.
Last question, PK. I guess to follow up, though, you had Democrat control in 21.2. There was a sort of effort at trying to do some sort of AU on that. It went nowhere. Do you all regret you've had moments in the past with Democratic presidents where there was an ability to do something and it didn't happen?
What we can handle is what's in front of us today. We can write books and fill your column inches with regrets under this dome. We'll save that for other days. But what is in front of us today is, are we going to stand up for our constitutional authorities? Are we going to protect the role that Congress has here? Are we going to look out for American service members by asking tough questions? That's our role. And like the vice chair said, that should not just be when you disagree with the administration or when you have a different political party from the administration. If we're truly going to do the people's business here, we need to ask those tough questions, and we need to wait till the winds line up and the stars align and we can get something done. That part is unfortunate. Maybe we've missed a few opportunities, but that doesn't mean that we turn a blind eye right now. It doesn't mean that we just let Donald Trump walk all over us. It means that we stand up for our and speak up on behalf of our constituents at every opportunity. Thank you.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Serderman. A press conference that has just wrapped up on Capitol Hill. That was House Democratic leaders. Right now, we are keeping an eye on the NATO summit on the top right. Leaders are trickling in, leaders from across the world. On the bottom, President Trump just landed there for the summit. We're waiting for him to deboard Air Force One as he arrives there at the NATO summit. All right, so we want to shift now to an interview with Gas Buddy I did earlier today, talking about the impacts when it comes to the Israel-Iran conflict and what that can mean for you at the pump. Let's take a listen in. This is Matt McClain with the Gas Buddy.
Hey, Matt,
Dude, there have been so many questions, concerns, information, misinformation about everything surrounding the conflict in the Middle East as it relates to oil prices. Uh, what is the latest? Because I feel like it's so hard to keep up with when it comes to this stuff. What can you tell me? Can you put some context around what's happening right now?
You know, it changes by the hour. We've had a ceasefire and some violations on both sides of the ceasefire. The president's currently not the happiest camper in the world about that, understandably so. But the reality is this, conflict or no conflict, oil prices may be reacting to that just a touch. And we understand that. But for the moment, prices are still on their way down compared to what they were even 24 hours ago by quite a bit. And with regard to gasoline and other aspects, we had this question a lot yesterday. You know, should I fill up my tank? I'm concerned. I'm anxious. The answer is, if you need gas today, get gas today. If you need gas tomorrow or Thursday, get gas tomorrow or Thursday or Friday. There's not going to be a huge interruption per se of any kind of an aspect. In fact, no interruption at all. So what we're looking at right now is a lot of anxiety amongst the consumer, very understandably so. Ongoing conflicts are not yet in the history books to read. So we have to look at that and just say, whatever it is that's going on over in the Middle East, yes, it's a little nerve-wracking, it's a little concerning, especially with the U.S. involvement over this past weekend, but the reality of the situation is still the same. Gasoline is flowing just fine. Gas prices, for the moment, honestly, are going to start falling as of the way things are moving over the past 24 hours. At this time yesterday, I was saying gas prices are looking to increase. But right now, actually, over the past 24 hours, we've seen a huge drop in crude oil prices, a large drop in wholesale gasoline prices, and consumers may start seeing that price reflecting at the local pump as early as the end of this week and continuing to go from there. So it's a really interesting dynamic that we're seeing right now. We have the conflict going on. And does the ceasefire hold? Well, that's a great question. And I don't think anyone knows the answer, including President Trump, Israel, or Iran. I really don't know if at any point anyone has a direct answer for that. But I can tell you that as far as anything domestically speaking with oil and gas, we have nothing to be concerned about.
It's tough when you I guess we saw it a lot during the elections, right? You go on social media and there are reports from who knows who, right? Just random folks putting out this information. It might not necessarily be true. Does that make that tough to kind of get the correct information out there?
So just giving thanks that we have people like myself, Patrick Tahan, and other aspects to just simply bring about accurate information. So it actually, I guess, maybe job security at this point, it does help for those types of things. But, we're here to just more or less give the information and just let it factually stand on its own merit. I'm sure that misinformation, whether it's perhaps a direct misinformation campaign from a foreign entity or just, the next door neighbor deciding to misbehave themselves, whatever the case may be, yes, there's a lot of information out there, and we certainly understand that. That's why it's important to pull open that Gas Buddy app, look at different things. Just remember, look for yourself. Look at the price point at the pump. Look at the other aspects with your own two eyes to disprove any of the false information that is being spread out there about a wide variety of different topics, not just oil and gas prices, understandably. So I do understand that misinformation can create a moment of pause for folks because you may want to kind of lean into that and go, well, what if that's true? What if that's true? But the reality is, look at all the misinformation we've been fed in the past, and none of it turned out to be true. And again, that's something that you can look into a technical history book for and be able to see the end story to all of those things. And it turned out to not be true. So let's just look at the facts, look at the evidence that we have, look at the gas prices, look at the crude oil price per barrel, and just kind of just take a deep breath and everyone just keep going on about our business.
scenario where gas prices spike. I know there have been talks. Again, we are in a limbo now, ceasefire, a disruption in the ceasefire, a possible closure of the Strait of Hormuz from Iran. Is there a possible, I'm throwing out these scenarios, but is there a possible scenario where that happens?
Well, I'm not sitting in a situation room for any country at the moment to know exactly what's going on by the second, and I certainly don't have satellite access to know either. But I can tell you this: let's say something like that were to happen. We don't really get much oil out of the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, the crude oil supply, there's a 20 to 25% of the global supply goes through the Strait of Hormuz. Would our prices increase? Theoretically speaking, in a hypothesis situation, sure, they probably would increase without a problem. Would we have a supply issue? No. Why? Because most of our crude oil comes either domestically produced here within the United States or by friends that like us, Canada, Mexico, and other countries along those lines. In fact, in the Midwest, for example, a lot of the gas refineries utilize Canadian oil in order to produce gasoline across portions of the Midwest and the Northeast. Likewise, other places in the country, the Southeast, the South, may use crude oil produced from places like Texas. So we have a lot of levers to pull, so to speak. Would we run out of product? No. Would we possibly see a price increase? More than likely, without any question mark on that. But again, that's all a hypothesis at this point. I will say, I would argue that Iran really doesn't have the technical capability of closing the Strait of Hormuz. Yes, it is a narrow body of water, but you're still talking multiple miles that they would have to figure out how to close. Secondly, that would be economic suicide on their part because they also need the Strait of Hormuz just to operate daily as a nation. It's not just crude oil that obviously moves through the strait for Iran. They have all kinds of products and goods and whatnot that have to make its way through there just to supply their nation with things. So that would not be a wise move on their part in any way, shape, or form. That would actually be quite devastating to them as well. So we have to keep that in mind whenever we start feeling that fear and that saber rattling, if you will, by different comments. A lot of that is just talk, because the reality is that would really just put them into a lurch, really far more than it would America.
One more question before I get you out of here. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina. A lot of folks, school just got out. This is just a general question. We are in summer. It feels like the dog days of summer right now.
Oh, yeah.
Because it feels like over 100 degrees today here in Charlotte. I say all this to say folks are still going to make trips, make plans on the road. Any advice for folks as we head into the summer?
Yeah, so we are, again, seeing that fluctuation back and forth within the conflict. We may see some prices at this particular point for the next week or so, probably going to decrease unless something crazy happens this afternoon or tomorrow or whatever the case may be. The best thing you can do in order to help yourself economically speaking, drive efficiently, make sure that you are looking out and setting that cruise control when it's appropriate to kind of help yourself save some fuel and get some better efficiency out of your particular vehicle. Use the Gas Buddy app. Find the cheapest prices in your area. And if you happen to be planning a trip, you can actually use the app to plan your trip out and use a map situation through there as well. And it will even show you what the cheapest gas is along your way as you are navigating through that trip. And it will help you find that gas station whenever you are arriving. So there's a lot of particular tips. Obviously, look and make sure that your tires are properly inflated. Take it to the next, the shop and get the oil change and all of those types of things. But as far as the efficiency goes, that's about the best that we can offer in that regard. It's about the best that anybody can do with regard to gas prices. The app, the Gas Buddy app, is certainly something that will keep you, because you, the consumer, are the one who reports those prices. So we know that they are accurate, and we obviously, we're just here to kind of help folks get the cheapest gas possible.
No, thank you so much. All right, so that was my interview with Matt McClain with Gas Buddy, giving us some perspective when it comes to oil prices and the conflict between Iran and Israel. All right, so you're taking a live look now. This is a live look from OKC, Oklahoma City Thunder The victory parade, they just won the NBA title. They're celebrating there. Fans are excited. A lot of excitement there. We just heard from the league's MVP moments ago. Let's take a listen in to live coverage from the NBC affiliate there in OKC. Let's take a listen in.
We appreciate the folks who couldn't be downtown. Those just a special day together. Again, we've talked about it. There may be more championships. We hope there are. We hope it's the beginning of a dynasty, but it may well be as young as this team is. But there's only that first NBA championship parade, and today was it. So it's really a piece of Oklahoma City history. A young state that we are, it's pretty hard to believe we've only had an NBA team for a while.
I mean, we laid the blueprint out today for a flawless season, nearly flawless season, a picture-perfect day for a victory parade. So laying the groundwork, as many of the team and management have talked about, for a legacy, for real years to come of more victories, more victory parades, and just one of the most storied teams to ever play in the National Basketball Association.
Without question, the impact this team has had on the psyche of this town, the economic impact it's had on this town, bringing businesses in that see us as a big league city now, the merch that's all over the place down here. Everybody and their dogs got something that says Thunder, so what a special day it's been here in downtown Oklahoma City.
We're going to do a big league sign off from this big league city. Thank you so much for joining us for this extended coverage. Have a great day, and Thunder up.
True Sky.
Hello everyone, I'm Catrice Nolan. Today is Tuesday, June 24th, and here's a look at your headlines in the news. We have a lot to get to today, beginning in the Middle East, where a fragile ceasefire appears to be falling apart. Just hours after President Donald Trump announced a ceasefire between Israel and Iran, Israel says Iran launched more missiles, violating that agreement. This just 3 hours after the deal took effect. Iran denies violating the ceasefire. The agreement was orchestrated by the U.S. and Qatar. The president made the announcement in a late-night social media post saying, quote, "The ceasefire is now in effect. Please do not violate it," end quote. Meanwhile, hours before the deal took place, Tehran fired its final 4 missiles into southern Israel, killing 3 people with 1 still missing. This also comes after Iran launched a retaliatory strike on a U.S. air base in Qatar Monday. The air base stations thousands of troops, but no one was hurt. How much will the U.S. feel the impacts of the Iran-Israel conflict? There are a few ways you can protect you and your family just in case something happens. Our Jason Miles has more on how people are reacting to what might happen next.
With a military base now being targeted after weekend airstrikes in Iran, Navy dad Kenneth Bailey knows the potential danger for his son moving forward, but backs the decision to bomb Iranian nuclear sites.
I think Iran is a rogue nation, and to have that nuclear capability can hurt hurt all of us.
Not only are tensions high overseas, many cities here at home are ramping up resolve, as should all of us individually, according to retired FBI Supervisory Special Agent Dennis Franks.
I don't want people not to go about their business, but yet you've got to be really careful now.
Franks, who's helped organize security plans for Super Bowls, believes big events like Freedom Over Texas and upcoming Beyonce concerts will be getting added attention, even if agencies don't publicly reveal plans.
We've known for years that Iran and Hezbollah have been developing a network of covert cells across the world, and undoubtedly they have cells in the U.S.
Identifying evacuation routes and having an emergency plan yourself is essential no matter the event, says Franks.
It is common sense, but it's valid.
He says heeding travel warnings and other alerts is also advisable, but don't let fears stop you from living your life. Just be well informed and ready to react responsibly if something happens.
As the ceasefire is in effect, many in the U.S. are concerned about the country and how it will be impacted moving forward. And many are protesting, asking for leaders in Congress to step in. Our Whitney Miller has that story.
Hands off Iran now!
As news of rising tensions between the U.S. and Iran, a group gathered in front of the federal building urging peace and calling on political leaders to change course.
We're gathering here today to say U.S. out of Iran, no wider war.
The rally comes after a weekend of airstrikes. The U.S. bombed several Iranian nuclear sites. In response, Iran launched 19 missiles at a U.S. military base in Qatar, warning the U.S. ahead of time and causing no casualties. President Trump called it a very weak response and soon after announced a pending ceasefire.
A lot of people are scared. They don't know what it means for the economy. We don't know what it means for American safety.
The war's ripple effects are being felt here in Louisiana, especially in the state's political delegation. Before Iran's retaliation, Congressman Steve Scalise posted online calling the strike a targeted, direct, and necessary response, saying President Trump met their threat head on. But New Orleans Congressman Troy Carter struck a different tone on X, saying, quote, "Don't let the bombing of Iran distract you," calling attention to the president's big, beautiful bill that sits before Congress. Those protesting in New Orleans say their concern isn't just political, it's deeply personal.
It's a real question about what the future of our country is going to look like, what the future of working class people, our security is going to look like.
Though it's unclear whether the ceasefire will hold, these demonstrators say they'll keep showing up, demanding that local leaders listen, even when the conflict feels far from home. In New Orleans, Whitney Miller, WWL, Louisiana.
And so we're not falling.
A Marine Corps veteran in Louisiana is speaking out after U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement agents detained his wife during a routine immigration appointment in New Orleans. Paola Coltree, a 25-year-old mom of a breastfeeding infant, faces deportation as part of President Trump's immigration push. Officials aim to arrest 3,000 people daily. Legal experts say military families, once given leniency, are now impacted. Paola entered the U.S. illegally with her mom over 10 years ago and has been trying to legalize her status.
For me, it's hard not having her around, you know. I'm happy to go distract myself at work, but I come home and my other half is in there. And, you know, I see it on my kids' faces that, you know, they miss their mom.
The family's immigration lawyer says this case is part of the Trump administration's blanket enforcement approach, which is putting many more people at risk.
It's just a hell of a way to treat a veteran. That's all I can say. I don't think this was intended, but it's what occurred. So, because they issued a blanket order to arrest everybody with the final order of removal. Now that puts millions of people at risk of being arrested by ICE.
Many people in Florida will pause today to remember those who died in a condo building collapse. It was 4 years ago when the Chaplin Towers South went down in Surfside, Florida, killing 98 people. According to engineers, the building collapsed because of aging infrastructure. In a sweeping effort, Florida authorities have recovered 60 missing children ages 9 to 17 from dangerous situations, including human trafficking. Operation Dragon Eye brought together more than 100 personnel from 20 separate agencies. This is being handled as the most successful child recovery case in U.S. history. Our Eric Glasser has the story.
This is what it's all about. This is why we do the job.
In a show of collaboration unlike anything before it, more than 100 personnel from 20 agencies joined forces in what's being called the most successful child recovery effort in U.S. history.
These kids have been through painful, disastrous situations, but at least today we've rescued them and we now can work towards recovery.
Using intel from the National Center for Missing and Exploited Children, Operation Dragon Eye led to the recovery of 60 juveniles ages 9 to 17, many of them missing, some trafficked, all considered in danger.
We were able to identify at least 26 children recovered who had been previously reported missing to NCMEC.
The number is not just a statistic, it represents a life and a future that was given one more chance.
The effort also resulted in the arrest of 8 suspects, now facing charges from child endangerment to human trafficking.
Because experience tells us if the offenders are not apprehended, they will reconnect with these children. They are, in my opinion, leeches.
To ensure the children received immediate and long-term care, recovery hubs were set up, counseling, resources, and shelter at places like the Children's Home Network in Tampa.
And maybe today will be the day that young person decides to make major changes in their life. Maybe today is not that day. But today, at least, that day of recovery, that day, we know that they are safe.
Officials hope Operation Dragon Eye also sends a message that Florida is committed to arresting and keeping those who would exploit or traffic vulnerable children behind bars. In Tampa, Eric Glasser, 10 Tampa Bay.
Stay with us, weather and more news right after this break.
I'm meteorologist Caitlin McGrath, and the big talker over the next several days is going to be this extreme heat dome that is building in the south and east. That is bringing record extreme temperatures to the southeast, back through the mid-Atlantic, parts of the Great Lakes as well. A large swath of the country dealing with temperatures that are far above average and in some cases extremely dangerous. So let's start off with what's going on in the north and west, where temperatures are still plenty warm for this time in summer. Temperatures are in the upper 80s for Spokane and Boise today. As we look ahead to tomorrow, Boise up to 91 degrees, plenty hot with lots of sunshine. Spokane will gradually see temperatures fall into the 70s by Thursday. Seattle, you've got some showers to get through, especially Wednesday into Thursday. Portland, temperatures in the low 80s today, but low 70s by the time we get to the second half of the week. Pretty toasty back into Sacramento. You've got the 90s Wednesday into Thursday. Denver, you're in the mid to low 80s today. A little bit cooler for Wednesday with storm chances possible both days. By Thursday, temperatures are in the upper 80s. Phoenix still cooking in the triple digits, and San Diego classically sunny and 70. Great stretch of weather in San Diego. Quite hot around Texas as well. We've got temperatures in the 90s all across Texas, and this is kind of kicking off that southeastern heat wave. Temperatures in the mid to upper 90s for Dallas, down into Austin. You've got some daily storm chances for Austin and Houston here, just given how hot and humid it is. Corpus Christi in the low 90s over the next several days. Down into Florida, you've got mid 90s today and tomorrow. Some storm chances start to increase Wednesday into Thursday. Atlanta's cooking as well, upper 90s over the next several days. Little Rock, today's actually your coolest day of the next several, back in the upper 90s by Thursday. New Orleans, you're steady in the mid to low 90s over the next several days with those daily storm chances as well. Back into Charlotte, you're up to 100 degrees today. You'll get some relief from rain by the time we get to Wednesday and Thursday. Louisville, mid to upper 90s, blazing hot sunshine. Similar forecast for Memphis and back into St. Louis as well. A little bit cooler, of course, back toward Minneapolis. You've actually got the 60s on Wednesday, but that comes with clouds and showers. A few storms for Thursday. Des Moines, you're in the mid to upper 80s over the next several days. Toasty into Indy with temperatures in the mid 90s and lots of sunshine. Some storm chances closer to Grand Rapids for Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday with temperatures in the upper 80s and low 90s. Now back into Norfolk, temperatures in the 90s over the next several days as well, with no relief from any kind of rain, just hot sunshine. DC is in the triple digits today with thunderstorms as we look ahead to Thursday, but still hot and humid in the mid to upper 90s. Buffalo today is your hottest day. Temperatures will get a little bit cooler Wednesday into Thursday, and back into Portland, 98 hot degrees today. But don't worry, you're back in the 70s by Thursday.
As we mentioned, much of the country is experiencing a heat wave, which can be extremely dangerous. Our Sharice Gibson shares some tips on how you can beat the heat.
Hack number 1, close your blinds and curtains during the day. It's a proven way of keeping your home cooler. According to the U.S. Department of Energy, 76% of the sunlight that hits a standard double pane window turns into heat. Turn your blinds upward or close them all the way to reduce the amount of heat coming into your home. The lighter the window treatment, the better. And according to FEMA, in cases of extreme emergency heat, you can also put aluminum foil covered cardboard over your windows to reflect the sun's rays. 2, if temperatures cool down at night, energy experts recommend opening your windows on opposite sides of your home to create a cross breeze, drawing in cooler, fresh air. Fans can help speed up that process. 3, a ceiling fan will make you feel cooler due to a wind chill effect, but it won't necessarily lower the temperature of the room. According to Home Depot and Energy Star, you want to make sure your fan spins counterclockwise during the summer months so the blades push cooler air down in a column. You can usually set the direction using a small switch beneath the blades. To cool down your body, experts recommend a cold washcloth or ice pack on your pulse points. That's where your blood vessels are closer to the skin's surface. Columbia's Climate School recommends the pulse points on your wrist, neck, elbows, feet, thighs, temples, and forehead. Don't have an ice pack? Pop a wet washcloth in the freezer. Lastly, avoid using appliances that give off a lot of heat. Your oven, stovetop, washer and dryer, and dishwasher all give off extra heat. Try using a microwave or an outdoor grill to cook. If you have to wash clothes, use cold water and air dry or do laundry at night.
We are in hurricane season, but what makes these storms so powerful? Take a listen to this breakdown.
Ocean temperatures need to be at least 79 degrees Fahrenheit for a hurricane to form. The East Coast warm temperatures are key in that formation. Atlantic temperatures can warm all the way up to near 90 degrees for parts of Florida, ideal fuel for hurricanes. The Pacific Ocean is a little different. United States West Coast waters are simply too cold. Even by the end of summer when ocean temperatures are warmest, Southern California ocean temperatures peak between 68 to 72 degrees. Northern California ocean temperatures only get to between about 55 to 70 degrees, and Pacific Northwest ocean temperatures peak between about 53 to 67 degrees. That's why eastern Pacific hurricanes solely form from Mexico and down into Central America. Water temperatures off central Mexico's coast can hit the 80s as early as May and June, hitting their peak temperature in August, September, and October. The Atlantic hurricane season starts June 1st, peaks September 10th, then officially ends November 30th. The Eastern Pacific hurricane season starts a little earlier, running from May 15th to November 30th, but the first named storm typically doesn't form until mid-June, and tropical cyclones can still happen outside of these dates.
When we come back, a look at your consumer news. Stay with us.
One woman turned her sweet vision into reality using credit cards to launch the bakery that she'd always dreamed of. Hi, everyone. I'm Cheryl Preheim with a look at your consumer news. That risky proposition is now paying off for the Ohio entrepreneur. But while her story is inspiring, financial experts warn that this path is not for everyone. Bryn Caswell has her story.
carrot cake frosted with a cream cheese. How is your day going so far?
Good. Riley Harris is baking more than cupcakes.
This one was creme fraiche with caviar.
She's building her dream.
I was running a home bakery out of my house, and it was so successful, and I was just so limited in the space and like what I could produce.
So this February, she opened her own storefront, Love Riley, off North High Street in Columbus. Business is sweet now, but getting here, that was the hard part.
We just kept getting denied by banks that just didn't want to loan us money. They didn't think it was safe enough.
Riley made a bold move. She turned to credit cards. No interest offers for up to 19 months helped her buy baking equipment and buy time.
The biggest ones that I used that gave me like the highest limits were going to be American Express, Chase, and Capital One.
Financial experts like Ted Rossman at Bankrate say while credit cards can offer short-term relief, they come with long-term risk.
That's a tough one because it's easy, but it's almost too easy. The interest rates are very, very high.
Rossman says with Chase adjusting its annual fees, other card companies may soon follow. And if you're not making six figures or charging thousands on travel, dining, or other big ticket items, those high fee cards may not be worth it.
There's a little bit of gamesmanship when it comes to you need to keep spending to get more perks, and some people might overspend. For a lot of people, I would say it's probably better to go with more of a mid-tier travel card or cashback, which has the ultimate in flexibility and simplicity without as many of the extra fees.
But for Harris, her risk paid off.
They were paid off. I think we paid our last one off like a month ago. So we had a little celebration, we cut a cake, and we are in the green now.
Every swipe built something sweet.
If you're ready to bet on yourself 100%, then sure, do it.
Turning now to financial security, just how much is enough? A new survey from Bankrate is shedding light on an important question. How much would it take to make you feel financially secure? For about half of all Americans, it's $100,000. About 25% of Americans say the number is much higher at $50,000. Others say they could make do with less. About a third of those surveyed said that they would feel comfortable at $50,000. If you're feeling like you're never fully financially secure, you're not alone. About 33% say they feel that way as well. Switching gears to your grocery list now. These days, high-protein snacks are popping up everywhere, from milkshakes and granola bars to pancakes, even popcorn. You might be wondering if these products are good for your body and your bottom line. Health experts say probably not. So you may be spending extra for something that your body doesn't actually need. Nutritionists say that these items are often highly processed and full of sugar, that most Americans get the right amount of protein from their diet already. Experts believe companies are just trying to cash in on those who don't understand the recommended daily intake.
It is not based on health. It is not backed by science. If you're buying a highly processed chocolate bar and it has added protein, it's just a highly processed chocolate bar with added protein. It does not have any health benefits. And a lot of the time, these foods are in fact high-risk processed foods. They are not actually healthy. Without any supplements or protein bars or protein ice creams, you're getting enough protein every day just from eating whole foods.
She goes on to say that this protein mania is similar to low-fat diets popular at the turn of the century. And this current trend is driven by marketers and social media health influencers. She says that you should talk with your doctors about your nutritional needs before you buy any supplements. Now to a reminder on how to protect the life of your smartphone battery. If you're spending time outside this week, you might get an alert on your phone saying it is too hot to use. Lisa Washington explains the importance of keeping your phone in the shade.
Heat is the #1 battery killer on your phone. Let's connect the dots. Both Apple and Samsung agree that 95 degrees is the highest temperature your phone should be in. It's not rare to see that during a typical summer day in the Carolinas. According to the Wall Street Journal, temperatures higher than that could damage your phone's battery and its ability to hold a charge. So what can you do to protect your phone? Try removing your phone case while it charges. Rubber and leather cases trap heat easier than others. Also, go to settings in your phone and limit fast charging. The feature seems like a great idea, but it can be counterproductive because it heats up your phone and can make the battery life shorter over time. And that's connecting the dots.
That'll do it for Consumer News. We'll have more for you right after the break.
A veteran's journey from war to healing after serving in Iraq and Afghanistan. Michael Brumlow faced a tough road at home, but through horse therapy, he found peace, purpose, and a way forward. Our Cal Simchuk has the story.
Michael Brumlow joined the Army after 9/11, serving multiple deployments in Iraq and Afghanistan. But when he returned home in 2013, the real battle was just beginning.
Found myself in a just bad place, dark place, struggling, didn't know what to do.
For more than a decade, Brumlow tried every type of therapy available through the VA and on his own.
I got to the point where I felt like I knew the therapy manual as well as the people asking me the questions, and got to a point where therapy wasn't doing anything for me.
Then, last fall, he lost his best friend to suicide.
I was on my last leg, and it was my last prayer, and it's like, if this doesn't work, I don't know what else will.
Brumlow's wife suggested horse therapy. When he arrived at Hunkapi Farms in Scottsdale, he met 3 horses who had their own trauma to work through.
I got to see all 3 of them show up here and be just as jittery and anxious and scared as I was, not knowing what to expect, not knowing what to do.
Phantom, Phoenix, and Presley were rescued from a kill shelter in California 6 months ago, the same day Brumlow began his journey here. Hunkapi Farms serves children with special needs, ALS patients, and runs specialized programs for first responders and veterans.
You come across the gates at Hunkapi and now you're normal, and you're allowed to let those weaknesses or those hurts or those things that you're struggling with come to the surface. And the horses do the same, but the horses meet you and heal you.
Trauma recognizes trauma. I can see the same things in that horse that I know go on in me.
For Brumlow, the transformation has been life-changing.
This farm, these horses, this program means the world to me. In a sense, it's something that has saved me from myself, saved me from the world.
These rescued horses helping to rescue the humans who care for them. On this farm, healing works both ways. In Scottsdale, Kyle Simchuk, 12 News.
You're all caught up now, and that will do it for us. Here's a look at some stunning drone video from across the country. I'm Catrice Nolan, and we'll see you next time.
All right, you're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Thank you for staying with us here this afternoon on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. A lot happening this afternoon. We want to get to a bit of breaking news. We're still working to get a live picture for you from the scene, but here's what we know so far. There's a death investigation in the South Division, right? Okay, so this is from CMPD. And this is what they're writing. This is what we got from them. Detectives with Charlotte-Mecklenburg Police Department's homicide unit are conducting a death investigation in the 4700 block of Ockley Manor Lane in the South Division. As additional information develops, CMPD will update us, and we will continue to reach out to CMPD for more information. But I'm looking at a map right now, and James, you had mentioned it earlier. This is in a sort of slither.
Well, we're getting some clarification right now as we speak, Nick, that this is going to be in a neighborhood, as you mentioned, in South Charlotte, not too far from Carmel Country Club, I believe it is. Let me put this on the screen for everyone to see. So it's different than what I told you just before we came back on.
Okay. Yeah. All right, so this is a live look at the map right here. Again, this is a death investigation in the South Division there, South Charlotte. This appears to be a neighborhood. Again, Ockley Manor Lane there.
Yeah, so this is the Carmel Country Club, is that green space just to the right of it, just off of Carmel Road, a little ways north of Pineville Matthews Road.
And you can see there in that, on your left, that's kind of an idea of what that neighborhood looks like. But again, death investigation there. You can see there, this is where our crew is now. Again, we're working to, and I'm looking up here.
We just got a live shot up.
We have a live shot up. Okay. But again, a death investigation there. Detectives are there on the scene. The department's homicide unit is there. All right, here's a live look. This is the neighborhood, Ockley Manor Lane. This is in South Charlotte, right? You see this White House taped off, and you also see those 2 patrol vehicles. Don't see all. I'm sure officers are around, obviously walking around the scene, talking to the neighbors. But this is a live look at the scene. You see those officers. You see that house right there on Ockley Manor Lane, taped off, and it looks like this road goes to like a dead end. So it's not a long street at all as far as where this house sits. So again, this is what we are looking at, a death investigation. We have a crew there. We hope to get you more information as it comes in. James, are you a little bit more familiar with this area?
What I can add, Nick, is that patrol car right in the middle, the white CMPD vehicle, it's hard to make out on the screen, but it says crime scene investigators on it. So that would be in addition to the normal patrol officers are out there. They're the ones who are going to come out and do the CSI, if you will. I'll also just add for context, we don't know the nature of the death, but having worked for a while in this newsroom, Nick, as you know, CMPD will try to distinguish between like a homicide investigation, which might have criminal nature. Death investigation is kind of just like big umbrella. So it could or could not later become a homicide investigation. But right now they're just investigating a death, the nature of which is to be determined.
Okay. All right. And again, that was a great breakdown of that. Again, you see there a live look at the scene, crime tape around this particular house that you're looking at, those patrol vehicles. And again, we haven't seen officers walking around, but I'm sure they're there on their scene. I'm pretty sure they're there. Again, our crew is there. As soon as we get more information, our chat where we get a lot of our updates is continuously updating us with what is happening there, and our crew is communicating back what they are also saying. But again, this is what we are reporting, a death investigation there on Ockley Manor Lane. CMPD confirms that with us this afternoon. All right. So that is the situation there in South Charlotte. I'm going to pop back out here on camera. We want to reset. We're at the bottom of the hour, 2:30. Again, it has been a busy afternoon, a lot happening. And we want to get to the big story here, at least for this area. I know across the country they're feeling it, but the heat is the big story here in the Charlotte area. If you've been outside, in the words of Chief Meteorologist Brad Panovich, this is air you could wear. Because I definitely felt like I was wearing the air.
We're all wearing it. Yep.
Becca Birdsall is here in studio with another look at our forecast. So any relief in sight, Becca?
It's going to get cooler.
It's the sigh.
Back near normal for this time of year, so maybe lower 90s, which will be honestly refreshing.
Yeah.
Considering we're talking about triple digits for today, and of course the Charlotte area is under its first heat advisory so far this season. Of course, that's not a good thing. Nobody wants to be under a heat advisory. That's when we're expecting heat index values to be close to 105. You'll notice the mountains not encompassed under this, of course, but this continues from today all the way through 8 p.m. on a Wednesday. And you can see further off to the east over towards places like Raleigh, they are under an extreme heat warning in the purple, and that is for heat index values that are expected to be 110 degrees or greater, so it could always be worse out there. Outside right now, temperature is heating up. We're up to 97 here in Charlotte. We've already reached the triple digit mark over towards Sherrall, 99 in Rockingham, 94 over in Statesville, and even up to 88 degrees over in Boone, feeling like 91 over in the high country, 106 in Morganton, feeling like 103 in Charlotte, and about 105 over in Rock Hill. So if you have to do anything during the peak of the daytime hours, definitely hydrate and find lots of shade. As high temperatures today, we're only going up from here, going to be around 100 across the Charlotte metro area, which is something we have not done since last July. Of course, we're counting down our heat streak where we have consecutive high temperatures of 90 degrees or above. Yesterday marked the 5th, today will be the 6th. Tomorrow will be the 7th. Hourly heat index going in the next couple of hours, it's going to be feeling very much like the triple digits, basically from now all the way through about 7, 8 o'clock. So not much relief in the evening hours either. Heat index value is going to stay strong for tomorrow, close to about 104, still around that triple digit mark for Thursday. But you'll notice by the end of the work week, as temperatures start to cool down a little bit more near average for this time of year, it's going to be feeling like the middle to upper 90s across much of the area. Tomorrow is going to be a double whammy. Not only are we weather alert for heat index values close to 105, but we are also weather alert for the potential of strong to severe thunderstorms. So you'll notice the Storm Prediction Center has encompassed us under a medium threat for severe storms, meaning a few thunderstorms have the potential to turn strong to severe. Main concern is going to be damaging wind gusts, upwards of around 58, 60 miles per hour, but also the potential of some small size hail can be rolled out as well. Not everyone will see severe storms, but there is going to be a good chance for a lot of us to have the potential to see a couple of downpours in and around the area, as well as some cloud cover, which might provide some relief from that intense heat. So let's time out those rain chances. Isolated shower or storm possible for today. Most locations stay completely dry. Then as we approach your Wednesday, I'd say really right after midday till about 7, 8 o'clock is when really these thunderstorms are going to start to pop up across the area. This is really going to be hit or miss across the Charlotte metro. Could definitely impact that late afternoon and evening commute as you head home from work or school. And then the downpours really start to fizzle off as we lose a little bit of that storm fuel. And by the time we get into your Thursday, we'll have another chance for an isolated storm, just not going to be nearly as widespread as that coverage is expected for your Wednesday. So 7-day forecast, yes, we're weather alert today, tomorrow for the heat, but tomorrow also going to have the potential for a couple of severe thunderstorms. By the time we get into Thursday and Friday, temperatures start to cool down at least into the lower 90s. There will be a lot of extra humidity, so it will still be feeling like the middle to upper 90s out there, but at least we'll start to return to a more normal summertime-like pattern here in the Charlotte area because it has been hot. And of course, hitting that triple digit mark today, we haven't done that in a year. Sometimes we don't hit that at all. And we are ahead of schedule now.
Ooh. Oh man.
Yeah.
Like I every time I walk from my car to the building, I make eye contact with whoever's coming outside, and I'm sure they're like, man, why is Nick always in a bad mood? And it's just, it's just the heat. I'm trying to process all of it.
It's oppressive.
Yeah.
It really is. And especially during the evening hours where there's not much relief, just stay inside.
Yeah.
Don't go outside.
That's some good advice there. All right, Becca, thank you for your time. Hopefully you guys are staying cool this afternoon, or at least trying to. I know it's hard, but at least you're trying to stay cool. All right, so we want to pivot now. We want to go to Washington, D.C., where there is a press conference happening live. I believe we're hearing from Republican leaders there. Oh, that is not Republican leaders. That's James. I'm sorry, James.
James in the preview. Yeah, we'll take you there to Capitol Hill.
All right, here you go. Let's take a listen in.
That are in here are going to be made permanent. Secretary Bessent believes, he said this to us today, as I believe, that this will be the biggest growth portion of the bill that will lead to a lot of capital expenditures, more people working at higher wages. One other aspect of the bill, of course, is the border security bill part. This is very important. I was privileged on Monday to host Secretary Kristi Noem to come to Harpers Ferry, West Virginia, where we have the Advanced Training Center for our Border Patrol agents, where we're train over 16,000 a year to meet the challenges on our southern and our northern borders. And she talked a lot about the progress that the president has made in terms of border security, but without this bill, that progress would be stopped in its tracks. We need to move forward with border security to make sure that we're safer, but also those agents that we're training and the advanced training they're receiving in Harpers Ferry, West Virginia at the Advanced Training Center makes their job safe and the service they're doing for this country much appreciated. Thanks.
Thanks, Shelley. Leader, do you expect, even if the bill is going to pass, that you at least have 2 to 3 members on your side who would vote no?
Could be.
Why? Why?
Well, we've got a lot of very independent thinking senators and who have reasons and things that they'd like to have in this bill that would, in their view, make it stronger. But at the end of the day, this is a process whereby not everybody's going to get what they want. And we have to get to 51 in the United States Senate. We are moving toward that objective. I'm hopeful at the end that we'll have the requisite number of votes to pass it. And we just had Secretary Besson, as you I know heard from, come in and speak to us about why it's important to get the bill done and why it's important that we get it done in a timely way. And so we're looking forward to progressing on the bill this week, and hopefully when it push comes to shove and everybody has to say yes or no, we'll get the number of votes that we need.
As a member of the Gang of Eight, do you agree with the assessment from President Trump that the key nuclear enrichment facilities in Iran have been completely and totally obliterated?
Well, I don't, I'm not sure I have, you might want to hear from Senator Cotton, who chairs the Intelligence Committee, an answer on the full extent. But we know for sure that their nuclear program was set back considerably, and that is a victory not only for that region but for our country's national security interests.
Senator Cotton, do you agree?
On rural hospitals, some senators say that is not only the biggest sticking point, but that Senate Republican leadership does not have a plan to address it, specifically the provider tax. Can you guarantee that rural hospitals will not lose millions of funding and millions of Americans won't be left without insurance?
We are working on a solution for rural hospitals, and that's something that's been in the works now for several days in response to a number of concerns that our colleagues have mentioned about ensuring that there be the impact on rural hospitals be lessened, be mitigated, and I think we're making good headway on that solution.
How do you expect to fund the schedule? Text is going to come out Wednesday or Thursday. Can you break it down? Motion to proceed on the bill, first vote on Thursday or Friday. Can you provide any clarity there? And you have a couple colleagues who are outspoken with their complaints here. How are you confident that you'll have the 50 votes you need to proceed?
Well, I just think when push comes to shove, you're looking at whether or not you're going to allow the perfect to become the enemy of the good. And there are a lot of things in this bill, as I pointed out. It modernizes the military. It secures the border. It brings tax relief to working families. It has the biggest spending reduction in history, and it restores energy dominance for our country. I mean, I think there is so much good in this, and when people sit down and evaluate how they're going to land in the end, you have to recognize that this is a process whereby everybody doesn't get everything they want, but I think we produced a bill working with the House, working with the White House, that will get the requisite number of Republican senators to vote for it so that we can pass it, get it back to the House. Hopefully they can take it up and pass it and put it.
You're watching Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. I'm Nick Sturdivant. Right there, a press conference just wrapped up. Great timing by us, I guess. Republicans wrapping up their Republican leaders there on Capitol Hill. All right, so we want to shift. We're going to come back home. So right there on the bottom right of your screen, you're looking at a live shot from a death investigation that's happening right now in South Charlotte. That is a live look at Ockley Manor Lane. What we know so far, death investigation, and what you could see right here, those two patrol cars and this house, this White House in front of you, surrounded by crime tape. All right, so that is the situation there. We're still working to get additional information on what exactly happened. Let me check our content thread to make sure there are no more updates. We want to point out this is near Carmel Country Club. There in the area, but again, not a lot of updates regarding this death investigation. As soon as we get more, we want to bring it to you live here on Live Impact News on WCNC Plus. All right, we'll shift now to South Carolina, where a press conference is happening live. That is Governor McMaster as he is speaking. James, do we know what this press conference is about?
Yes, so he's in Casey, South Carolina, Nick, and we just learned that he will be holding a ceremony of bill signing, which establishes the Department of Behavioral Health and Developmental Disabilities. And that is happening right now in Casey, South Carolina. All
right, let's take a listen in.
Promise, and that is the promise of South Carolina to our people. So I want to thank everybody involved. These leaders you see standing here before you, and many others that are there, and many others around the state whose efforts and energies have led us to this point. This is a wonderful day for South Carolina, and it is a fact that this is the best place in the whole country to live, work, and raise a family. So we're going to talk about it just a little bit, and then we'll sign the bill, and then we'll celebrate a little. Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Governor.
Yes, sir.
The 3 P's of a successful public servant is be present, be prepared, and be patient. There's that patient thing that's always been tough for me. But since from Lawrence, Senator Verdon, Chairman of Medical Affairs Committee, that's when we started the journey on this issue, when I was Chairman of Medical Affairs. First of all, we turned it over to our quarterback. I call him our quarterback, the chairman, the senator from Beaufort, Senator Davis. He takes on issues like this and runs them across the goal line. And he did this on this issue also. And then on all issues like this, he's helped us. It started off with the certificate of need, needing to address it. The certificate of need process, to me, I think that's when the joke, we're with the government and here to help you, started. So we eliminated the certificate of need. Then we talked about the Beach 12, I call it a DHEC, we addressed that. And then today, what we're doing, the consolidations of these 3 agencies, working to restructure our government on health care. So it's a big day for us, big favor for here. It's important. It's an important piece of legislation. And my opinion is, Governor, that this piece of legislation will make our citizens of South Carolina happier and healthier for generations. Thank you. Now, the President of the Senate, Senator Alexander, has been with us every step of the way.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good afternoon. It is truly a great day to be here, to be a part of this today, and to get to this point. Mr. Chairman, as you said, that patience, I've seen you work on that, and it's paid off from the standpoint of us getting here today. And I think as you look at this behind us, this is Team South Carolina in its best, because we're putting the people of South Carolina first. The needs of the people. Again, great team effort from Chairman Verdon, as the chairman talked about, our quarterback, Senator Davis. Governor, thank you for your leadership. You're not only on this issue, but all that you do for South Carolina, of making sure that we are on track for a great future, and to our House colleagues. But as I reflect on this, and you think about these agencies that are represented in this bill that's being ceremonial signed today and what it represents, having been involved in the subcommittee of health care and the finance committee, and hearing from constituents, not only in Senate District Number 1, that I have the great honor to represent, but for hearing from citizens around this state, I think what this symbolizes, when we are bringing government together, restructuring, but we're also providing the opportunity to meet people where their needs are. When you think about mental health, DAODAS, DDSN, so many of the individuals that need care by one of those agencies needs care by another agency. And we've kind of had that silo system here in South Carolina. And if you will, I like to refer to it as kind of being ping-ponged from one agency to the other. This gives us the foundation to make sure that the needs of those individuals that are reaching out for help are going to get the help that they need by having that coordination and communication and cooperation. I think I finally got your 3 C's. I've been working on it a while, about several years now. But it represents the very best from that standpoint. But it really has to drill down, in my opinion, to making sure that those services are also coordinated back in our communities. And that's the challenge that this new agency and these that are a part of that will have, because that's where the rubber meets the road. But I'm confident with the right leadership and organization at the top, our citizens across South Carolina are the real winners today to be that healthier and happy citizens across South Carolina, from the upstate to the Midlands to the coast of this great state of South Carolina. I'm honored to stand with these leaders back here to be a part of this today as we celebrate it. And at this time, I have the great pleasure of introducing and bringing to the podium the quarterback, as the chairman called, but also the chairman of the Labor, Commerce, and Industry Committee, but all in the Senate, but also does so much in so many different realms for us. Senator from Beaufort, Senator Tom Davis. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
One number I want to start out with, 32. The reason that number is important is because the first major restructuring bill that happened in South Carolina was in 1993, when Carroll Campbell signed into law creating the first cabinet in South Carolina. Prior to that, we were the quintessential legislative state. You've heard South Carolina being called the legislative state. Well, what does that mean? Well, it means that we have a legislature pursuant to the 1895 Constitution that makes the laws, through electing judges, has a material say in interpreting the laws, and up until 1993, all through today, it had a hand in executing the laws through agencies that were by and large controlled and appointed by the legislature, not the governor, not a cabinet. And so we're all familiar in grade school about checks and balances and the three branches of government and how that's a healthy form of government. They check and balance each other. We didn't have that here in South Carolina. In 1993, before 1993, when Governor Campbell signed in the first major restructuring bill, there were 77 different state agencies that provided services. That bill collapsed them down to 17 agencies and put a lot of them under the control of the governor, which is where executing the laws should be, right, in the executive branch. But one thing that Carroll Campbell could not accomplish was getting the health care agencies within firmly that executive branch of government. You still had DHEC, which was a commission structure, which was not accountable to the governor. You had Department of Disabilities and Special Needs, a commission agency, not accountable to the governor. You had Department of Mental Health, similarly, a commission agency, not accountable to the governor. And so for years, and what got me involved in politics was trying to bring in, when I was working for Governor Sanford, we talked about how can we have those proper functions of government in the executive branch brought within the executive branch. And Robbie Kerr, actually, this is coming full circle. Robbie Kerr was Health and Human Services Director when Governor Sanford was in his first term, when I was Chief of Staff. So I've known Robbie for that long, and we've been talking about doing something like this today for that long. And the reason this is happening, the reason you now have all the healthcare delivery agencies in the executive branch, in a cabinet accountable to the governor, is partly because of the leadership of Governor McMaster laying down the marker and saying we need to accomplish this for the people of South Carolina. But most importantly, if you look at this bill, the primary sponsors are Harvey Peeler, the senator from Cherokee, and Thomas Alexander, the senator from Oconee. That is extraordinary that the two most powerful members of the Senate, the leadership in the Senate, was willing to surrender, quote unquote, executive powers fully into the executive branch. That's a degree of leadership and cooperation that I have not seen in my 20 years involved in politics. But that's how something fundamental like this can occur, is when you have leadership like that and people put the health of our republic here in South Carolina at the forefront and not institutional jealousies. So I want to thank Governor McMaster. I want to thank Chairman Peeler. I want to thank President Alexander, and also my good friend Danny Verdon, Chairman of Medical Affairs. I mean, Senator Peeler, you pointed to this. A lot of heavy lifting has been done in that agency under his leadership. We got rid of CON, this idea that the government has to control where hospitals are built, and hospitals have to come get a government permission slip before they can provide health care. We beat that back and repealed CON. We took DHEC, and it was often said that you're never going to divide that up, and divided it into the two excellent cabinet agencies, DPH and Department of Environmental Services. This was the last piece, getting these three relatively small but very important state agencies, DDSN, DEOTUS, and DMH, coordinated. They serve overlapping populations. People with alcohol problems often have mental issues. People with mental issues also may have disabilities. So you have these overlapping populations, and yet, because of that 1993 incomplete restructuring, we still had them operating independently. Today, I think we can declare restructuring complete. Today, 32 years later, we are accomplishing what Carol Campbell tried to accomplish and could not. And we did so with the leadership of the people you see behind me. And as Senator Alexander said, President Alexander said, this is all about better services for South Carolinians at a lower cost. All of you great professionals now will work collegially with the same information systems, working with caseworkers that overlap. It's a great day for South Carolina, and I'm very proud to be a part of it. Thank you.
Good afternoon. Can everybody hear me okay? Good afternoon. I want to tell you that I appreciate being here. It is an important day, and it's an important day to me. I've spent 9 years in the House of Representatives, and only in the last few years have I really felt like, wow, we're getting things done. I appreciate Senator Davis's work on this bill and many others. His group works with the mirror group on the House side. I want to also appreciate and have a shout out for the folks in the House of Representatives. There is a House and a Senate, by the way. I want to make sure y'all remember that. So we all worked very hard together. We're here not to do the easy things, but we're here to do the hard things. I have a statement that's prepared. I just wanted to make sure that I said certain things. So I'm particularly excited to be here for this bill signing. This signing is not just policy. It's about compassion, responsibility, and a deep commitment to the well-being of South Carolinians. This is more than just a structural change. It is a promise to the people who have struggled to navigate a confusing system while in crisis, a promise to families who've spent years searching for help that should have been simple to find, and a promise to healthcare providers who need strong, unified partners in government to serve patients with care and effectiveness. For too long, mental health services have been spread across multiple entities, potentially resulting in confusion, delays in care, and opportunities missed to intervene and to heal. With this bill, we are changing that. We are creating one integrated responsive system, a system that speaks with one voice and that will streamline care pathways, reduce bureaucratic hurdles, and prioritize outcomes over paperwork. We've even added an accountability requirement that ensures we are maximizing efficiency, consolidating duplicative programs, and eliminating redundancy, while ensuring that the quality, accessibility, and specialization of services are enhanced. Most importantly, we are putting patients and families at the center of our mental health and health care strategy. We know that the work doesn't end here. Implementation begins now, and we will do it with transparency, accountability, and urgency, because every day is a missed opportunity to help someone in need. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, and what a pleasure it is to be here. And Governor, thank you for allowing me to come out of my retirement to enjoy this time. I was within inches of wearing board shorts and a T-shirt here, but I thought that might be too much for y'all. So. And Chairman Peeler and Chairman Alexander, yes, patience is the right word. 20-plus years, and I know this has been a priority of yours, and I'm glad to see it here today. When I was in the state, I used to be asked frequently, well, what are the major challenges that we have in South Carolina, particularly when it comes to health? And of course, that can be a long list, as we all know. But the answer is really easy. The challenge is we have no plan. We have no vision for health in this state. And the reason we don't have a vision for health at the time is because our agencies were in their own silos, disjointed, not serving everyone as they should be. That ends today. One of the more discouraging things I would encounter, as Senator Davis referenced, we'd have dual diagnosed individuals, people who might have mental health problems, people who may have addiction problems, people who may have intellectual disabilities, who duly diagnosed but couldn't get services at our agencies because the agency's bureaucracy would get in the way. Because we knew what we were supposed to do as mental health, or we might know what we were supposed to do at DDSN, but we didn't know what to do when someone showed up that needed both services. And families and children suffer. To this day, I think there are 12,000 duly diagnosed individuals in this state now. And again, as I said, that ends today. So I'm proud to be here. It's been said that the worth of a state is determined by how well it values its citizens. And I believe that. And today we show that we value these citizens, and we value the people who have behavioral health, intellectual disabilities, and addiction issues more than we have in the past. So I'm looking for great things out of here. The one thing I know that is true is that the employees that work at these agencies are the best in the world. These employees know what they need to do. All we need to do is point you in the right direction and get out of your way. With that, thank you very much for letting me be a part of this.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you everybody for coming. Thank you for the work that you've done, the work that you're going to do. And it is clear that it is a remarkable day when the goodness of the government approaches the greatness of its people. And this is such a day. Now we'll sign the bill. Anyone have a question for anyone?
Governor, the original version of this bill included adding Department of Public Health, Department of Human Services as part of that consolidation. Do you think there's a need to further consolidate?
That's about.
Good afternoon, folks. Vanessa Rufus taking over in the Live Impact News studio. Thanks for sticking with us here on WCNC Plus. Of course, as you just saw, we had a live feed there from South Carolina as Governor Henry McMaster was signing a bill creating a Department of Behavioral Health. We have a great interview lined up for you this hour. And man, we're going to be going back over the last decade or so in Mecklenburg County history and kind of looking forward to what comes next for the county, because as we reported here on WCNC Plus, Mecklenburg County Manager Dena Dioro is going to be retiring from that position. There will be someone new stepping in on July 1st. And so we wanted to have Dena Dioro here to talk about what the last 11 years have meant to you, kind of as you prepare to close this chapter, I mean, I can imagine that's probably a bittersweet type of feeling for you, but July 1st is coming up, a week from today. How are you feeling? And what went into this decision that you felt like, this time, this was time to do this?
Well, I mean, first of all, thank you for having me. I really appreciate being able to take the time to talk about all this. I'm feeling really good. I mean, I think when you're ready. And I think for me, this was certainly the right time for me to go. And there was a number of reasons why I wanted to do this. First, we have a new board chair. He's not all that new anymore, but Mark Jarrell came in December. Lee Altman came in also as our new vice chair. Young leadership, and I really thought it was important that young leadership really develop a relationship with the next young leader of Mecklenburg County. And, I knew that I was going to be retiring at some point, but when that change happened, I thought that was a good time for me to go. There's also a lot of new young leaders in the county in a lot of these other organizations. So you've got, the United Way, the Y, the Alliance, the Charlotte Regional Visitors Authority. We have a lot of new young leaders, and it was really, I think, important that all the young leaders get together and really sort of talk about what the future is for Mecklenburg County and the city of Charlotte. And, and I've talked about this before, my first husband died when he, was young, 68 years old, and never retired, not a single day. And so I really made a commitment to myself that I was going to retire when I was young and healthy enough to enjoy it. So all of those things together really contributed to my decision.
So, I mean, knowing that this time is coming to a close, you've been county manager for 11 years at this point. What do you look back on and say, man, I'm really proud of this, that we did this?
So there's so many great things I think we've accomplished over the last 11 and a half years, but I think one of the things I'm most proud of is, as an organization, Mecklenburg County is relevant, I think, in this community. And when I got to Mecklenburg County in 2007, I was the chief financial officer before county manager. And when I became county manager in 2014, I don't really feel that Mecklenburg County was relevant, that people would call upon Mecklenburg County to be at the table when problems were being solved. And that was one of my big priorities, was to really make sure that we were part of the conversation and people looked to us to help solve those problems. And I think that's definitely accomplished. I think we are definitely a relevant organization. We're a high-performing organization. We've got over 6,000 committed employees who work so hard to provide high-quality services to all the residents in Mecklenburg County, and I think I'm most proud of that.
I mean, there are a few headlines that I remember from your time as county manager. I'm probably a bit partial to this, but I moved to Charlotte pre-pandemic, but literally just right before the pandemic. And, starting off here at WCNC Charlotte, essentially my time here kicked off as a COVID reporter. So I was responsible for following the data for not just North Carolina and the nation, but also specifically counties in Mecklenburg County. And you were at those briefings every single day. It felt like there was a period of time where we were doing the daily briefings, and you had to be one of the leaders of the county through a pretty difficult time for a lot of folks. And I'm just curious how that sat with you and what you look back now, on that time and think, man, how did we do that?
Well, I mean, it was a very difficult time, and part of the difficulty obviously was that nobody knew what we were really dealing with, and so you really didn't know what each day was going to bring. So you got up in the morning and you just sort of said, well, let's see what today brings. And so having to be nimble and being able to pivot when you needed to pivot, but we did it as a team. There were a number of people who were part of our group, our hospital systems, all the other, the city of Charlotte, the towns, all the other people who needed to be part of those conversations. We did it as a group, and we decided, as a team, how we were going to proceed on everything. So while I was the one at the briefings, I was certainly not the one driving all those decisions. I mean, we really did it as a group, and I think that's what made us, most successful. And in the early days, that group, we talked 2 and 3 times a day. We did a briefing to the public once a day, but we were talking all the time to make sure that we were always aligned, that we always understood to the best that we could what the data was telling us, what the science was telling us, and what advice and guidance we needed to tell the public.
I mean, there's no playbook for that.
There's not. And they don't teach you in school. Nobody teaches you how to manage through a worldwide pandemic. And again, that was another reason why I retired, because I said, I'm not doing that again, and so I'm getting out of here before the next big thing happens.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely, difficult time, a lot of difficult decisions had to be made. The other, headline I remember, because there was even a New York Times article written about your decision, your role in this, but the response to the cyber hacking attacks in 2017, where Mecklenburg County, y'all had, the ransom that, somebody wanted, and you decided that you weren't going to pay that ransom. And I remember the New York Times headline about that, and I think somewhere within the first 2 or 3 sentences of that first paragraph, it was finally someone stood up to these cyber hackers. Can you talk us through that situation? And
Sure. Well, there was a lot also to that situation, and we had to look sort of internally at what the situation was, and one of the things that we were able to determine was that we had the vast majority of our data backed up, because if you don't have your data backed up, then you really are at the will of these cyber hackers. And so the fact that we had our data gave us some ability to make a decision that would allow us to recover. I mean, it was really all about recovery, and so having our data was really critically important. But we also talked to the FBI, the CIA, all of the law enforcement agencies. We talked to our colleagues at Bank of America and Wells Fargo. We got a lot of input. We also talked to our cyber insurance company, and actually they were the ones that told us that we should actually pay the ransom, where everybody else was telling us not to pay the ransom. So we had sort of conflicting pieces of feedback, but really knowing that we were able to restore our data, it took many, many, many weeks to be able to do that, and so we were offline for a really long time. But that was really a key part of that decision. The other part of the decision was you can pay the ransom, but you don't know if the encryption key is going to work. So you could end up in the situation that you were before, when you started. And then also, once you pay the ransom, you really become a target for future hackers because they think you're going to pay. So there was a lot of things that we had to go through. But, again, our employees were providing services and keeping records on pen and paper because they couldn't record anything in any of our systems. We couldn't interface with any of our state systems. They wouldn't let us connect to their systems. So it was a long road to be able to come back. Our HR system was down. We couldn't hire any people. So it took a while, but it was the right decision. And since then, we've probably invested well over $30 million to really make sure that we're prepared for the next time when it does happen, because I think no one's immune, but that we will be able to recover quickly.
I can imagine, and this feels like an illustration of that, this cyber hacking situation. In 11 years as county manager, you've probably seen a lot of changes in government and the role of government and how government has to respond to certain things and even what the government has to respond to. And I just think, from a perspective of a reporter and how we see things evolve, in a short period of time, it seems like relative. Can you think back to when you first started and now, and how much things have changed for you as somebody who manages the county?
I think in some respects, things definitely change, right? So technology is one of those things that changes dramatically. And, one of the things that we've been talking about in sort of my last 8 or so months is, how are we going to incorporate AI into how we provide services? So that's all new. But in the basic provision of county services, they really don't change all that much. We can find a better way to do it, a more efficient way to do it. But when you're looking at a family who needs food stamps or needs Medicaid, that's really a transaction that it doesn't really change. It's really about making sure people get the services that they need. But there are things around technology that we've had to try to make things better and more efficient, for sure.
Now, I know you've said before one of the things that you're particularly proud about of your time with the county was the MEC Pre-K program, and it looks like there continues to see, we see the enrollment growth with that, so there's clearly a need and an interest. Tell us about that program, how it's evolved, and your feelings now that I guess it's there in place, and the next generation can come in and usher in the next chapter for this program as well.
So the MEC Pre-K program really stemmed out of the Chetty study, the 50 out of 50 that the county was in 2014. We had a task force that came out with a big report. And one of the recommendations in that report was making sure that children had access to pre-K education, that children that have access to a high-quality pre-K experience do better in school, they're more likely to graduate high school, go to college, make more money over their lifetime. have less involvement with the criminal justice system. So the research was really clear about that. So Mecklenburg County as an entity, if we were going to lean in and try to make a difference as it relates to economic mobility and economic opportunity, we decided this was a place where we could lean in, because if we didn't do it, nobody was going to do it. And so we started in 2019. We launched our first class, and we have 105 classrooms now, and in the budget they just expanded for 10 additional classrooms, so we'll have 115 classrooms. And since we started the program, we've educated about 10,000 4-year-olds, which is remarkable, and that is transformational for those kids and for their families. So really proud of it and really excited that we have the support, and we continue to have the support for that really important program.
Yeah, I mean, education certainly a big topic, from various perspectives. I know we talk about education in relation to the pandemic and how kids might be bouncing back or not bouncing back in some areas from that. And so, I mean, have you heard of any discussions about, as it pertains to MEC pre-K, how there might be any changes or ways to try to get ahead of any sort of learning shortfalls for the community because of what we're seeing right now?
Well, I mean, I don't really know. I mean, all I can tell you is that, we do assessments of our kids when they come into our program and when they leave our program, and we know that our kids achieve a tremendous amount of growth during the year that they're in the MEC pre-K program. So we are sending them off to kindergarten, we believe, ready to learn and ready to be successful. And so if the data is correct, then we know that we're doing the right thing for those kids.
Now, I did want to talk about, being in government and how, I feel like in some ways social media and the internet might have changed, I guess you might say, the spotlight on what it means to be in government. And, I think there are a lot of ways that social media can bring, the public closer to the people who are, making the decisions and setting the policies in their communities. But there could also be, maybe a downside where, for example, I've heard from, some communities within the Charlotte area, but up in the high country, where they feel like because they're streaming their meetings, for example, they might have people who come from the outside who have no stake in the community, maybe just wanting to cause trouble or bully people. And I'm just curious if you've ever seen, that type of situation, with your role in government, and if that's changed at all because of the internet and social media.
Well, I think it has changed. When I first started with Mecklenburg County, we were not streaming meetings. And so we've come a long way since when I first started, and that's only 18 years. So from where I was to where I am in terms of how people are able to access information about government has really changed. Yes, we have people who come that maybe are instigators who really don't have skin in the game to the issues that we're talking about. But overall, transparency and making government accessible to people is always going to be better than not. And so while we do have to deal with folks who are going to be critical of what we're doing or try to be instigators or to cause trouble, I think the vast majority of people just want accurate information about their government, about what their government is doing and how they're making those decisions and how their money is being spent. And so I think that's all good. I think for somebody like me, you are more aware of the fact that there's a lot of places where people can take shots at you, but you have to stay consistent on your message, and you have to be transparent and accessible. And I think that's one of the things that me and my team have been very focused on, is making sure that we've always been accessible to the media. When people want to talk to us, we always make sure we make ourselves available. Public records requests, we always make sure we respond quickly, because I think in those instances when something goes wrong, you hope that when you build those relationships about being accessible and transparent, that you will get the benefit of the doubt than for somebody who doesn't practice that way. And so I think we've been very intentional about doing that.
And so I guess on that note, what is your message to the community then about how they interact with their policymakers and with leadership in their community, and how they pay attention to what is going on?
Well, I mean, I think what I would say is it's always okay to disagree, but you don't have to be disagreeable, right? I mean, we're all never going to agree. We're never going to agree on everything, but I think there's a civil way to have a conversation where we can have a good dialogue, and not escalate it to a point where that becomes the story. We never want that to become the story. We want to be able to make sure we have a good dialogue.
Yeah. We know that, and we've reported this here on WCNC Plus, the fact that the Deputy County Manager, Mike Bryant, will be taking over after you officially step down on July 1st. So have you spoken to him about taking over the reins? Have you given him advice? If so, anything that you could share with us that you've shared with him?
Yeah, so I mean, I am really proud of Mike. I've known Mike for 18 years. He's been with the county for 22. So, you know, he's watched me for 11 and a half years in this job, and I know he's paid attention. So I'm hopeful he's picked up a few tips along the way. But what I've told him is a couple things. One is you need to leave your ego at the door. You need to understand and embrace the fact that you don't know everything, and you need to surround yourself with people who know the things that you don't know. And it's okay to say, I don't know. Because if you try to be the smartest person in the room all the time, it never is going to go well for you. And the other thing I've told him is to make sure that he protects the position of county manager. The Board of County Commissioners creates policy, he executes on the policy, and you really need to make sure that you keep that line in the sand really clear, and as everybody stays in their respective lanes, it's a much more productive relationship.
So we know that recently, just a bit earlier this month, you were honored with the Order of the Hornet, which is the highest honor that Mecklenburg County can bestow, and it's all because of, you know, your role and your work with the county for so many years. Tell us about that moment. We've got some pictures that we can share with folks here on Live Impact News, and emotional at all? I mean, I just
well, it is.
feel,
I mean,
yeah.
you know, I've watched so many people get that award over the 18 years that I've been with the county, and to actually be the one to receive it is incredibly special. And the board, each member of the board said really incredibly nice things to me and about me. And it felt really good to be able to go and leave my service as a Mecklenburg County employee receiving such a wonderful honor. So I'm incredibly proud.
How do you feel about, you know, the county, the state of the county going forward? You talked about the fact that, you know, you made this decision in part because you felt like this is a new generation coming in and you wanted to make room for that. How do you feel about the new generation? Do you feel optimistic? Are there concerns about challenges you feel like might be coming for them that maybe you didn't face? Yeah.
So one of the other reasons why I was, you know, considering retirement is that I find it very hard to manage younger people now. And it's not a criticism of younger people, but their work ethic is different, how they want to work is different, where they want to work is different, what's important to them is different. And that's just not the way I was brought up in the world. And so I think a younger person will be more successful in managing a younger generation. I think the county's in great shape. I think the thing that will put pressure on the county is what happens externally. You know, we're still not sure about what could potentially happen with federal budget cuts, how those will impact the state, how the state will ultimately trickle that down to all local governments in North Carolina and across the country. And I think those are the things that the next county manager is really going to have to grapple with, is how do you pivot and change and adapt what you do in those very, very, I think, are going to be very trying times, if in fact they go forward the way we anticipate that they will.
Yeah. You mentioned the fact that one of the other decisions, you know, or factors that went into the decision, the fact that you thought, I want to have some time to enjoy retirement. So what does that look like? Will you be doing travel? Will you just be here watching from afar? I imagine you'll be unplugged, right?
Yeah, I'm not going to be watching from afar. I can tell you that. But, you know, my husband and I have some plans to travel this summer and in the fall, and we're going to continue to do that. You know, I'm a big golfer. I think a lot of people know that I'm a big golfer, so I want to play more golf. You know, I want to cook more, cook healthy, and work out more. Just, I don't know, just live life doing the things that I want to do, not what I have to do. And I'm really looking forward to that.
Well, I'm excited for your new chapter. Like I mentioned, I'm sure there's, you know, a little bit of a bittersweet feeling having to close that chapter, but knowing as well that there's more fun perhaps on the horizon for you. Anything that you'd like to leave us with before we wrap things up, just about reflecting back, the future of Mecklenburg County, the community, anything you want to say to the public?
Well, I want to first say that it has been an incredible honor to serve this county, not just as county manager, but also as our CFO for 7 years. It's been wonderful. I've had a really wonderful, I love my job, and I've always loved what I do, and I think I'm really good at what I do. So it's been a real pleasure to do that, and I really want to thank the community for all of their support. I mean, I think this community has been very incredibly kind to me and incredibly supportive of me, and that doesn't always happen when you're in a position like mine. So I feel very fortunate and very blessed.
Well, Dena Dioro, we thank you so much for you coming here, taking the time to speak with us on Live Impact News and reflect back on the last 11 years and looking forward to, your next chapter. Sounds like it's going to be a good one. So thank you again.
Thank you. I appreciate the time.
All
Absolutely.
Right. Folks, we want to, of course, keep you updated on all of the weather impacts, so stick with us here on Live Impact News. We want to bring you to our meteorologist Majestic Storms update because we've been talking about dangerous heat that is going to be with us for a few days. So here's what to expect. Once again, Majestic Storm.
Well, good Tuesday afternoon to you. I'm WCNC meteorologist Majestic Storm, and today is a weather alert day. Not just today, but tomorrow as well, because we're tracking still very high temperatures, high humidity, making for multiple days in a row of dangerously hot conditions. You can see the National Weather Service has multiple heat advisories and extreme heat warnings in effect for us. All counties shaded in this orange means we're really bringing that heat and humidity. Yesterday it was hot. Today it gets even hotter, and it's not just for us across the Carolinas, but several states across the country dealing with this extreme heat. So we really need to start paying attention to this, making sure that you're getting outside sooner rather than later as you're making those plans for your errands or anything you need to do outside as we're heading into our Tuesday and Wednesday, and even on Thursday it's still going to be pretty warm. Look at those feel-like temperatures as we're heading into the afternoon across the country. Triple-digit heat index values for us across Atlanta, Charleston, and straight up to the northeast. Back west, boy, that's feeling nice with 70s. Now, yesterday we topped off at 98 degrees. That was where we topped off for our high, and today it gets even hotter with our air temperature rising into the triple digits, and that's even before you add in the humidity. Once you add in that humidity, at times it could feel 105 degrees or even higher. Now, it's going to be even a hot day today across the mountains. Look at that, 88 degrees in Boone. A gorgeous day, though. Plenty of sunshine out there. Lower end of the 80s out towards Banner Elk. As we look towards Lenore, 96 is where you'll top off this afternoon, 97 in Morganton. And then as we bring it back home across Charlotte and Gastonia, 100 degrees. Again, that's before you add in the humidity, and once you do that, that's when it's going to feel even hotter. As you look over towards Rock Hill, 100 degrees this afternoon, much of the same out towards Chesterfield. So if you know somebody who doesn't have air conditioning, give them a call. Make sure they have a game plan, because this is going to be extreme heat, because not only is it very hot during the day, but we're not getting a lot of that overnight cooling that we need to get a little bit of relief. Feel like temperatures compared to our air temperatures by 4 o'clock in the afternoon, it's going to be 98 degrees, but once you add in that humidity, it's feeling like it's 105 degrees. Over the next 3 days, we're still bringing those above average temperatures, 100 degrees today, 97 degrees by tomorrow, but notice the chances for showers and thunderstorms, they return for our Wednesday forecast. You can see not just Wednesday, but possibly an isolated thunderstorm or two on Thursday as well, but really it seems like Wednesday could be our best next opportunity for some showers and thunderstorms. Taking you into our Wednesday now, here's about noon. You'll start to see a few more clouds move in, showers and a few pockets of storms. Wherever you're seeing yellows and oranges right there, that's where we're going to see brief heavy downpours and where we could see some of those storms form. Not just your typical thunderstorm that pops up in the summertime, but we're concerned some of those storms could actually turn strong to severe. So just make sure you stay close to our weather team. If any of those storms do turn severe, likely they'll bring a high wind and possibly a hail risk with them. Temperatures are cranking up today and then gradually starting to cool down near our normal this upcoming weekend. Definitely not cool, but we'll take those lower end of the 90s compared to those triple digits like what we're going to see today. Rain chances will start to increase come Wednesday, but again, today and tomorrow you might want to get outside, water your grass early in the morning time, and then again later on in the evening time, since we've been struggling with picking up that precipitation. 7-day forecast looks like this. Weather alert days today and tomorrow going to be all about that dangerous heat and humidity. If you have any outdoor pets, make sure they're also taken care of, providing plenty of shade, fresh, clean water for them, or just bring them inside. It is hot for us, it's hot for them, and you can see those 90s will continue throughout the weekend.
All right, so hopefully that is helpful for you planning out the next several days. As we mentioned before, please be safe if you have to go outside for an extended period of time. We want to bring to you now here on Live Impact News to a brand new feed that just came into our newsroom here, and this comes to us from Louisiana. So the Attorney General there, along with other leaders, are speaking on this investigation that apparently is just launched now into CVS. So the pharmacy retailer company. This is after apparently CVS sent mass text messages to customers urging them to tell their legislators to oppose a bill on pharmacy benefits managers. So we're going to listen in now, and we'll come back in with any big and breaking updates.
Just Mike.
Governor, you promised to call the legislature back into a special session on this issue. Is that still your intention?
We are convening a group of some of the best and brightest regarding PBMs and vertical integration. We are, and working with the Attorney General, going to go back through all of our statutes and determine whether or not we could exercise the authority unilaterally. But if we can't, then certainly we intend to bring the legislature in so that we can put the laws in place to protect our people.
Would that involve a special session or coming back next year, the regular?
As soon as I find out when I can act, we'll act. I also wanted to, I know that Senator Cloud is here and Dixon McMakin is here. These two legislators have been doing a tremendous amount on this issue as well. Yes, ma'am.
You just said that you're looking into possibly acting unilaterally with respect to pharmacy benefit managers and state statute. Can you say a little bit more about what you mean when you say unilaterally?
Well, we're trying to determine whether or not we can act from the executive position, rather than needing, whether or not the laws that are on the books are actually sufficient to be able to enforce some control over these PBMs, or whether additional laws are necessary. Yes, sir.
It says here in the press release that the state is seeking both injunctive relief and restitution. What would restitution look like in this matter?
That's just general language that we put in every lawsuit, but restitution would be related to any kind of specific damages that we incur in the investigation of the lawsuits and related to their practices. We've lost pharmacies around our state, and we've had to come in and surround those areas with additional services. Sometimes that even costs us more money. So, you know, whatever we can justify, we're going to seek. We also have penalties and attorney's fees under the Unfair Trade Practice Statute. Dion?
Yeah. Dion Gilbert at WAFD. So you briefly mentioned the ECHO bill. Can you explain what's in it and the changes and how enforcement is going to work?
Yeah, so Randall Johnson with the Independent Pharmacist Association can explain a lot of the details of that legislation. I can tell you that generally it provides a lot of transparency around pricing. It also has some very strong protections for the independent pharmacists against some of the practices that we outline in the lawsuit, like clawbacks, rebate manipulation, the kind of contracting that they do to undercut their prices and what they have to actually pay for the drug. We have a statute now. I mean, we already had a statute that prohibited that. I have some express authority under this particular statute under Title 22 to enforce it under Title 51, which is the Unfair Trade Practices Act.
Thank you, General. Governor, thank you very much for being here today and those questions. This law that has been signed by the governor, is being signed by the governor, House Bill 264, brings added transparency toward the goals that these pharmacists have, which is that the patient find access to necessary prescription drugs from their choice of pharmacy, and that that pharmacy be able to fill that prescription because we have the laws being enforced, the laws that we passed, the laws that prohibit steering, telling a patient that you can't use your local pharmacy, you can't use a pharmacy close by, that you have to go out of state, out of town to mail order. We also face with effective rate pricing, where they pay a pharmacy and then reduce the amount they pay to the pharmacy after that prescription has left, and driving that pharmacist to where they are not being reimbursed to cover their cost. The pharmacists have only asked to have their cost reimbursed, their cost of acquiring and dispensing the drug, and we have passed those laws overwhelmingly by our legislature. This piece, which has passed with no nay votes in our Louisiana legislature and is being signed by the governor, offers the added enforcement of laws which have been on the books and we have not seen enforced until this time.
Yes, ma'am.
Jasmine Dean with PLFY. Last week, a class action lawsuit was filed with the CBA Secure Mart. How are these three lawsuits similar or different from the class action lawsuit that was filed?
So that lawsuit was filed on behalf of individuals, and our lawsuit is filed on behalf of the state. So my authority under Title 51 is different from that of an individual attorney who's representing individual plaintiffs.
Well, that's an interesting, and it's a great question. In fact, it was interesting to see the article that the Advocate wrote, where they interviewed a number of people exiting a CVS and asked them if they were concerned whether that CVS closed, and none of them seemed to care. I will also tell you that I can make maps available to you all that show you the number of pharmacies in Louisiana in addition to CVS's. I have not been able to find a place where there is a CVS and there isn't additional pharmacies in close proximity to that CVS. I feel very confident that the market can handle the closure of CVS if that's what they determine to do. However, we are not going to allow companies to come in here and prey on our Main Street pharmacies. That's the problem. That's where we are here. That's called monopolistic practices. There are laws against that. Yes, ma'am.
So it actually was always a transparency bill around PBMs. So from the very beginning in the Insurance Committee, we had PBMs included in this to show some of their unfair trade practices. Now, the bill did grow as it moved to the Senate. It passed unanimously out of the House, went to the Senate, and they added more transparency measures. We upgraded the measures where the Attorney General has more oversight and can, hold them accountable for certain things. And there were 4 or 5 more provisions. When you look at the whole bill, we banned spread pricing. We put a lot of rebate reform. Like right now, PBMs collude with health plans, and they keep hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars. They turn around and rip off these guys by holding their money or pulling their money back through clawbacks. It's an extraordinarily large unfair trade practice, and it's only gotten worse over the last 2 decades. I've been able to work with the pharmacists and independent pharmacies over the last couple of years to pass small bits of legislation to protect the Office of Group Benefits. This is a large piece of legislation that over the next 24 to 36 months will broaden the authority of the AG, will broaden the authority of government to see what these unfair trade practices are and these untransparent practices that are happening. And I think at the end of the day, they've been out there messaging, and CVS is one of the bad guys. There are other ones that are out there that have done these exact same practices. That CVS is not alone. I think that at the end of the day, when we get 3 years down the road, it will lower prescription drug prices, increase transparency, and actually increase access. You got to remember, 10 years ago, there were more independent pharmacists in this room. CVS has put them out of business by manipulating pricing, and that has to stop.
Yeah, I want to just point out that I also have existing lawsuits against Optum Rx and Express Scripts for the same kind of conduct. So we now have lawsuits pending against about I think there's only one other one right now that we do not have a lawsuit pending against, and we're looking at that one too. But those 3 that we've sued account for about 80% of the pharmacy market. So this conduct is pervasive. It is across the PBM market. And when CVS declares that it would have to close 100 pharmacies, I will tell you that they've already closed 100 pharmacies. It was theirs.
Sure.
Thank you, Governor. I know you mentioned Governor Sanders a couple of times, and I'm just wondering if you talked to her about the proposal that didn't end up passing related to banning ownership of pharmacies by PBS. Have you been in touch with her about that and the lawsuit that her state is bringing?
Oh, I spoke to her the day that they passed the bill, and she put the Instagram post out. I was like, wow, this is unbelievable. This is what we need to do here in Louisiana. I called her and congratulated her about it, and what she told me was what to expect if we went after the vertical integration model. She told me that they had spent in excess of $1.5 million against the governor of Arkansas because she simply wanted to lower prescription drugs in Arkansas and cared for the people of Arkansas. In fact, if I'm not mistaken, it's only the second time that that amount of money had been lobbied, had poured into the state of Arkansas to lobby against a particular initiative. So she had told me to be on the lookout that if we were going to attack or dismantle the vertical integration model, to be prepared for that type of lobbying.
And I'm hoping I can get one more question in for AG Merle. You mentioned evidence that you believe that the text messages violated state unfair trade practices statutes. Can you just say a little bit more about the evidence that your investigation found related to that?
Well, I received a number of complaints the first day that the text messages started to go out, including one from the governor and the first lady. Also received the text messages myself so I could see for myself what the messages were saying. We sent a cease and desist letter out on June 12th. CVS responded to that fairly quickly, reached out and indicated that they claimed that they did not use customer information for those text messages. But I received them on the same text chain as the messages that I receive about my prescriptions. So I find it hard to understand how they weren't using the same information to release those text messages since they all came. I mean, one says, you've got a prescription waiting and your flu shot, you can get your flu shot here. And then the other one says, oh my God, veterans, seniors, and people with chronic or serious health conditions, you might have to pay more for your drugs and you might not be able to get your prescriptions filled. So it's all on the same chain, and I think that is some pretty serious evidence that they were using customer information for it.
Okay, well, thank you so very much. We appreciate the local pharmacists that are here today, and we will be updating the press as I'm sure the Attorney General is, as the suits move through, and we will let the press know as we make our way towards whether or not we can take unilateral action or we need legislative action. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, folks, so you saw there some questions being taken by leadership in Louisiana. We had prefaced our bringing you this feed by mentioning the fact that this was an announcement of a new investigation into CVS. The company apparently sent a mass text message blast to customers telling them to contact their legislators and tell them to oppose a bill on pharmacy benefits managers. This was House Bill 358. And ultimately did not pass, but would have barred companies from owning both pharmacy benefits managers and drugstores. So more on that to come here on Live Impact News. Meantime, we want to turn to a big global topic, and we're getting some interesting perspective on it right now as we're joined by UNC law professor Michael Gerhardt, because we're talking about Israel and Iran, the war, the conflict that's escalating there. And Mr. Gerhardt, you just returned back from Israel, and from my understanding, you were actually there as some of the retaliatory strikes were being lobbied on Israel. So you're back home now, obviously. What is this? What was that situation like? I mean, you were there when this was kind of coming to a head.
So we had been in Israel for 2 weeks, teaching and meeting with scholars and other sort of people in the government, and actually participating in protests, among other things. But the Thursday, our last Thursday there, is when Israel launched its attack. And it's fair to say, I think everybody, certainly around us and everybody in Israel, did expect some kind of retaliation. That, unfortunately, that's the dynamic in that region. Come Friday, we were still trying to make plans to leave the country. Our flights got canceled, so we had to come up with a plan to sort of drive to Amman, Jordan, which we were going to do on that Saturday, but we had to survive between that Friday and Saturday. And Friday night Friday, particularly in the afternoon, and more so in the night, the bombing started. And these are ballistic missiles coming into Israel. And my wife was in one part of town, I was in another part of town. We each sort of got ourselves into bomb shelters and tried to keep in touch that way. It certainly felt to me when a ballistic missile exploded what seemed to be above me, my whole building, including my bomb shelter, shook. And then my wife fortunately made it all the way to our place so we could be in the bomb shelter together. And all that night, all Friday night, there was just bombing. So we basically didn't sleep. And the smartest thing to do in that circumstance is just stay in the bomb shelter. So we survived that Friday, and then Saturday we started to drive into Amman, and we were able to fly out of Amman, Jordan on Sunday.
I mean, the description, of going through that experience, I mean, it stops your heart to think about. And I mean, you touched on something that, keep in mind, of course, we know this from following this day by day, but I feel like the cycle on this story is moving quickly. It seems like there are new developments, but I remember kind of around the time frame that you were just describing there was a lot of talk about how Americans and or other folks who were trying to get out could get out because there were closures at the airport. So could you walk us through that situation of just trying to figure out how you were going to get home? I mean, obviously you were able to do so inevitably, but I mean, that was a big concern for a long time and likely is for still so many people.
Yes, you're absolutely right. In fact, we still get texts and emails from friends or other people we met in Israel on sort of how they can get out. I think it's becoming a little easier right now than it had been when we were there, which is now more than a week ago. So on Friday, I think the last Friday we were there, in the morning, we got news that Ben Gurion Airport closed, which meant our Delta flight got canceled. We were already thinking of alternative plans. I just shut off a couple emails to the embassy. I didn't expect much, and that low expectation was justified when later in the day the U.S. Embassy sent out a message that we are not going to help Americans leave Israel, which basically meant, of course, we were going to be on our own. And I think we're already reconciled to that. Fortunately, we have some friends in Israel, including a really good friend who is pretty well connected in terms of the routes both into Israel and out of Israel. And with his help, we were able to schedule on Friday a series of drivers who would then sort of take us from Tel Aviv to Eilat, which is in southern Israel, and then we crossed over the Jordan border around Petra, and then we were met by a different driver who was able to then drive us from southern Jordan to northern Jordan, or where Amman is. And Amman obviously is a very large city of roughly 4 to 5 million people. And its airport was both closing and opening. So the night we arrived, Saturday night, it was open. But then it closed later in the night. Sunday morning, first thing, it was closed. And so we were not entirely sure what to do, but we talked to some people at the hotel and who told us they thought the best thing for us to do was just simply take a car to the airport, and if the airport opened, then we'd be able to fly out. The advice we got was also, if we don't go at that point Sunday morning, and the flight did take off, we'd probably never make it. So we went to the airport. I was tracking the airport itself on the drive, and it opened roughly middle of our drive to the airport. We got to the airport, went through 4 security stations in Jordan, considerably more cumbersome than we experience here in the United States. Plane took off about an hour late, but it did take off, and fortunately, it landed and we got home. I think we were maybe 3. There were probably no more than 3 or 4 Americans on that flight, and it was full.
I mean, did you ever anticipate that you would have to go through all of these measures just to make it back? When you first set out on this trip, I mean, and looking back now on what you went through to get home and all that you experienced while you were there, I mean, did this trip turn out so much different than you thought?
I would say yes and no. We certainly didn't expect that Israel would be attacking Iran, or Iran would be retaliating during the time we were there. But I should note that the time we were there, Israel was still in a state of war, but its war hadn't yet totally focused on, or singularly focused on, Iran. One thing about being in Israel is you are fully aware of the possibility of attacks. Also, however, you're around people who have been through this kind of thing before. So everybody around you is quite calm, and that actually helps you stay calm. And I think we were calm and very focused throughout. And I will say we got tons of messages while we're there from people who lived there and lived in the region, asking if we were okay, did we get out okay, and so on. And so there's a sense of, for lack of a better word, support that you have under conditions like that, which maybe helps your mindset.
I guess on that note, since you are still in contact with folks back there, and you kind of alluded to this fact that there is a mindset, maybe an acknowledgement of the realities of the tensions that are ongoing and constant in that region. Do you feel like that mood is still the same at this point? Do you think things have maybe evolved, in the last several days? Do you think that folks might still be feeling calm and collected?
It's a good question. Our impression has been, and we were also in Israel last summer, but our impression last summer and this summer has been that Israeli people, generally speaking, are traumatized. They got traumatized on October 7th, and there's really been no let up under those circumstances. The military is quite exhausted because there are only so many people they've got available in reserves and otherwise, sort of to fight the war. So you get this sense of almost a fatalistic sense from a lot of people, which is, okay, if today's the day I go, so be it. But we're going to fight and try and survive as best we can in the short term. And so I think we did expect, or it was not surprising something might happen while we're there, because it is that part of the world. It's just, it happened in a different way than we expected, and then we had to kind of hustle, but with the support of friends, we were able to make it back.
I'm just curious, as someone who clearly has connections and ties to the region and the area, how closely you've been watching since then, all of the developments that have taken place, including the U.S. actions that we saw over the weekend, the decision to make those strikes on suspected nuclear sites. Have you been following that very closely? And if so, what are your thoughts on how this is playing out at this point?
Yes, I have been following it closely, in part because we still have some close friends, and my wife has family there, so we just want to make sure everybody's okay and safe, and they have been. In terms of I guess the military sort of actions, one thing that is clear from our experience, it's one thing if another country is shooting drones at Israel, because Israel has this famous dome that helps protect it from drones. The dome works with ballistic missiles, but not quite as well. So imagine that a ballistic missile is somehow damaged or explodes in middle of air. You still have the missile itself, which is going to land somewhere, and that could be very dangerous. So we kind of followed it to get a sense of, okay, how safe is it? How are things changing? I think the U.S. involvement was a bit of a surprise to the extent that it was, but I think with the current mindset of the current government in Israel, they are very much sort of in a war mentality. And I can't say that most Israelis support that, but on the other hand, you could also say in the United States, a lot of people don't support what the administration is doing. It's somewhat paralleled in Israel.
Well, I feel I'd be remiss if I didn't ask this, just given the fact that you are a law professor with UNC, and we know that one of your foci is constitutional law. There's been a lot of dialogue over whether there was some sort of violation with the president ordering these strikes over the weekend. We know, just as several moments ago, House Speaker Mike Johnson basically defended the president's decision, saying that it's within President Trump's Article 2 powers as commander-in-chief to order this, but we see folks who are not quite feeling the same way. So I'm just curious what your expertise tells you about the situation and this particular thread and dialogue that is a big topic right now with this conflict.
I appreciate the question. I think one challenge of being a constitutional law professor right now is to hear things that are just dead wrong, and from people who should know better. The quote you just gave from the Speaker Johnson, or the reference to him, he's completely wrong. And it's not just me speaking. The Supreme Court in the early 1950s decided a very significant case called the steel seizure case, involving President Truman's seizure of control of the nation's steel mills. The Supreme Court struck down his executive order, and in doing so, the Supreme Court declared that a president has no inherent emergency power. So much for Speaker Johnson's comments. Beyond that, the Supreme Court said a president's power must derive from one of two places: the Constitution itself or a statute. So in the current circumstance, there's nothing in the Constitution itself which would authorize a president to take unilateral action. The Supreme Court has never acknowledged that that would be permissible, and our best understanding of the Constitution is that it wouldn't be permissible. The president's job is to implement congressional policy, not to be developing the policy himself in the absence of congressional action. The question in President Trump's case is there a statute or a resolution that somehow supports his actions in this instance. And so far, what has struck me is that the administration has been dead silent about that. You would think if it had authority, it would just trot it out. But it doesn't, it's not trotting any authority out, which does reinforce the suspicion that this must be unconstitutional.
Now, I mean, coincidentally, and you won't be able to see this on your end, just based on the technological setup we had, but we just put up a little box in the corner of our screen. It's actually a live feed of House Speaker Mike Johnson speaking at this very moment. He was actually talking about this topic. And I was just curious to get your take, because we heard him trying to make comparisons. For example, this is another quote from him. President Biden ordered strikes on Iraq, Syria, and Yemen. President Obama launched an 8-month-long bombing campaign in Libya to oust Gaddafi. President Clinton initiated air patrols and airstrikes in Bosnia and a bombing campaign in Yugoslavia. So he says, this is a continuation of the quote, every one of those actions were taken unilaterally and without prior authorization from Congress. Do you feel like those are comparable comparisons? Or, I mean, I guess, what's your take? Do you have a response to that particular statement?
Well, I have two responses. The first is the speaker is engaging in this sort of view, or this practice, which I guess has been pretty popular with him and others, and that is to immediately point to other people doing something wrong and then claiming somehow that ought to give his president some authority. That doesn't work in constitutional law. We also learned at a very early age, 2 wrongs don't make a right, 5 wrongs don't make a right. So I find that argument to be very, very weak. But the other thing is the examples he used are probably not the best examples he could have found, because each of the presidents you just mentioned had some kind of congressional authorization or treaty or other law that they were acting pursuant to. That's not the case in this situation. Obviously, after 2001, a lot of presidential actions were undertaken consistently with a joint resolution that had authorized the use of force in response to the attacks on 9/11. So that covers a lot of the presidential activity post 9/11. And otherwise, I think that it's what Speaker Johnson has not said, and this is telling, is what the specific authority is for President Trump to do what he did. That's the simple question. It should have a simple answer.
Before we get to our next question, because this discussion is super interesting, and I know we have a lot of viewers here on Live Impact News who want to continue this dialogue. So I just want to point out that we're about to transition to our 4 o'clock newscast here on WCNC Plus. Our discussion here with Michael Gerhardt is going to continue on our secondary channel. This is on demand here on WCNC Plus. So basically, go to the main console and select the secondary channel, and you can continue to listen in on this dialogue here. My next question here for you, Professor, given all that you've said about your thoughts on the actions taken over the weekend and your belief, you feel like this was not within the president's frame of power, where do we go from here, I guess? Because we hear a lot of folks in Congress who are now begging for information. They feel like they say that they're trying to get information, that they want to know how this was done. That's a lot of the dialogue that we're seeing from folks who oppose this decision that was being made. But what sort of checks and balances might be in place to I guess, correct things if, as your opinion was that this was not done correctly?
Well, I think the main thing is that a president's constitutional duty is to enforce or implement the policies that Congress has made. And the president has a lot of, that gives the president a lot of authority to have that duty. However, in this instance, Congress hasn't had a chance to formulate a policy. And this is Constitutional Law 101. Congress makes the law, which means Congress makes the policy. A president does not make the policy. It doesn't matter to me who the president is. If a president is acting unilaterally without congressional support or authorization to use force, that president is in all likelihood acting unconstitutionally.
So as this situation continues to develop here, I'm just curious what you know, as an expert in this field, will be looking out for to see what happens next. Who will you be watching for action, and what might you expect to see coming next, you know, in this specific dialogue that we're seeing over powers of the president?
I would personally sort of love to see Congress using its own power and Congress getting involved rather than sitting on the sideline and letting the president usurp its power. There's a lot of stuff that Congress could be doing, for including not just hearings, but actions. And so it's just curious to me why we're not seeing that. Apparently the Senate's holding a hearing on Joe Biden's mental capacity when he was president. Strikes me as a more timely thing to think about. Maybe we should have a hearing on the current conflict. This is all compounded by the fact when the president's representatives or officials, the people who work for the president, show up in Congress, their presentations usually are very disappointing because they just are partisan talking points, and they seem to really think their main job is to attack Democrats and be disdainful of Democrats in Congress. I'd like to see everybody remember that they have a duty to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. Yes, members of Congress are partisan, but it'd be great to see them do their jobs, and great to see them do their jobs not so much for the sake of partisanship, but for the best interests of the American people.
If we can go back to your recent trip to Israel, I mean, obviously there's a travel advisory out for folks who are traveling. I mean, pretty much it sounds like everywhere at this point there are some concerns. Thoughts on staying in touch with folks? I mean, it seems like you're probably not going to get back there anytime soon. How do you go from here as far as, you know, keeping in touch with the people that you know back there and how they're doing?
Oh, I'm somewhat fortunate in that, and I guess we're all somewhat fortunate that we have these means, including WhatsApp and texts and emails, which allow us to be able to communicate rather easily with people who share those sort of programs. So communicating has remained very easy at this end. You're right, we are not going back anytime soon. I think one thing I would certainly offer or suggest to other people is to take warnings about travel very seriously, particularly sort of once you're outside the United States, and I wouldn't say necessarily in enemy territory, but you're outside the United States in a place where war is happening, you're not going to necessarily be able to rely on the embassy to help you. It certainly didn't help us at that time. And so I would say just try not to go anywhere you don't have an exit plan regarding.
Michael Gerhardt, we appreciate your time here on Live Impact News. Is there anything you'd like to leave us with before we wrap things up this afternoon?
Just happy to be back in North Carolina and looking forward to teaching in the fall.
All right. Thank you so much, and glad that you made it home safely as well.
Appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Folks, here on Live Impact News, we appreciate you sticking with us for this extended version of our stream here. We wanted to let you know before we transition fully here to the 4 o'clock news. Of course, many folks who are on the primary channel are already watching that. But if you stuck with us here on the secondary channel, we actually just got some breaking news just into the newsroom here on Live Impact News, and it's regarding measles. So North Carolina has actually just confirmed its first case of measles. We know that this has been a big topic from a public health standpoint, particularly as we're seeing outbreaks in various parts of the country, but particularly West Texas. So This information just coming to us from North Carolina Department of Health and Human Services. They say that they've confirmed the case of measles in a child who was visiting Forsyth in Guilford counties. Apparently, the child became ill while traveling to North Carolina from another country where measles outbreaks have recently been reported. They're not releasing any more information about the person in order to protect patient privacy here. But as we mentioned, this is the first confirmed case of measles in the state this year. And we are hearing from public health officials just the reiteration that they're asking anyone who might be unvaccinated against this illness, if you're 1 or older, to go ahead and get that vaccination as it is, they say, protection against this illness. And we mentioned this as well. We actually had a segment here on Live Impact News several days back with Mecklenburg County Public Health Director Dr. Raynard Washington. The fact that there is, an alert, an advisory for folks who might be passing through heavily trafficked public areas, for example, airports where you have people coming and going, coming from perhaps, in this case, different parts of the country or different parts of the world where there are outbreaks happening, that there is the potential that you might come into contact with measles, and if you're not protected, might contract the illness. So, of course, we'll have more for you on the news here on WCNC Plus. We will be back with Live Impact News for our usual time at 7 o'clock, but don't forget 6:30, the half hour beforehand, we have that news segment, Weather Impact, where we'll definitely be talking about all of your weather headlines, especially the dangerous heat we're seeing here in the Carolinas. So stay safe, y'all, and thanks for sticking with us here on Live Impact News. I'm Vanessa Rufus.